This episode of the BJJ Foxcast is brought to you by BioPro. BioPro is an all-natural alternative to prescription human growth hormone, which aids in recovery, anti-aging, metabolism, libido, immunity, skin health, cognition, sleep, and stress. Just one vial per day provides a substantial boost to all of these growth factors. Okay, so that's what they want me to say. Here's what I know as an aging grappler. I've been using BioPro Plus and the nighttime variant, BioPro Plus Cortisleep, for several months, and it feels like I've grown a third lung. My gas tank is noticeably bigger, my recovery is faster, and I'm back on the mats much quicker, not just between training sessions, but between rounds. Now you can get $30 off your first order of BioPro when you use the code FOXCAST at www.bioproteintech.com. That's code FOXCAST for $30 off your first order at www.bioproteintech.com. Thank you, BioPro. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the BJJ Foxcast. I am your host, Alex Martinez, and today I have two good friends in the house. I got Steve Benton. Say hello, Steve.
Hello, Steve.
Steve is a purple belt in Jiu Jitsu. He's also my afternoon coach, my 1 o'clock coach at Aries Mesa BJJ. Shout out to AEM. And then I got Mario Aguirre. Mario started with us pretty recently, but you got a cool story to tell.
Yep.
Podcaster.
Yep.
And what do you do for a living again?
Operations manager for a cleaning company.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Boring.
Yeah.
Boring stuff.
Yeah, but being responsible for people sucks.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
We all talk about leadership, and we're all military, prior military in here, right?
Yeah.
But it's tough. So we all know how hard leading people is, and
yeah,
you got to be invested.
Yeah.
And I think I'm in a point in my life where I'm like ready to be invested in myself.
Good, man.
So,
yeah.
Which is why we're here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
This is tough, man. It's hard to do, especially since, you spent your whole life like doing stuff for others, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe I should focus on me. And like, I don't know how to do that, you know? So it's a process. It's definitely a process. So both of you guys, we're all veterans here, but you were Army. Air Force, sorry. Yes. Air Force, and you were
Army.
Okay. And I was Navy. So I did I did more cleaning than both of you combined. I guarantee it. I don't know, dude. I can strip and wax a passageway like nobody's business, dude. I'm pretty good at it. So what did you do in the Air Force?
I was an aircraft mechanic.
Okay.
So I worked on the U-2, the F-35, the 16, the A-10, and then just like dabbled in a few others while deployed and things like that. So
yeah, by dabbled, you got like voluntold to work on stuff?
Sometimes voluntold, sometimes we were just bored.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, like when you're deployed, sometimes like if your aircraft's in the air, especially with the U-2, when I was deployed with that, it's very it flies for like 12 hours. So,
oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a glider, so
yeah,
it would fly forever.
Yeah.
And we'd get bored on the ground because once you launch the aircraft, you really don't have anything to do.
Yeah. Is that a spy plane, the U-2? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
you probably can't say a lot about it. Tell us all about it.
Honestly, there's not a lot that people don't know that isn't out there. Like, I mean, there was briefs that we got to go to that we got to see like what it was doing.
Yeah.
But overall, it just like, I mean, it's just a spy plane. It does, I mean, not just a spy plane. It's obviously been around. It's one of the oldest planes. I think it might be the oldest plane that
still commissioned
in the military. And it's like I said, it's a glider, so it has some cool stuff to it. Like when it lands, it kind of just tips over, and so there's a thing called the pogo crew, and what we would do is there'd be like a nice car, which is what the pilots drove, and then we got a truck,
of course,
so we had to follow the pilot. The pilot's like on radio with them, basically making sure because U-2 lands on basically a bicycle. It has nothing in the wings.
That's right. Yeah.
So as it's landing, basically the pilot that's like in the fast car behind him is like, hey, you're, move a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, center up, get on the like trying to get him to land.
Yeah.
And then we'd follow in a truck and we'd run out with these pretty much like they were about like J-shaped and they just had two little wheels on the ends. And we would run up and so whichever one was the heavy side, because the fuel is all gravity fed.
Yep.
So we would run out, hang on the side that was light, like three of us.
Yeah.
And then one person would shove the pogo.
Not while it's moving.
Once it's it's
Once
still
it's done.
like the pilot's still in the aircraft. Like
okay.
it just landed.
Okay.
But you got to get these on it so it's not just dragging one wing the whole way in.
Gotcha.
So you run up, you hang on it, and you're like, there's 3 people. Sometimes we'd have to get the pilot to come out and hang on it with us, like just to get it to go down because it'd be heavy side.
Yeah.
And then the other person shoves this like little contraption and then shoves the pogo in, and then the other person shoves it in, and now it can like
Move around.
kind of balance itself and not drag that wing the whole way in.
Yeah. How does that thing take off?
Well, you basically, it's pretty much the same process. You don't have to hang on it, but you run out, and as it's about to take off, you pop the little things out, and then it takes off and they fall out.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And then you go collect them.
Yeah.
In the truck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we collect them.
Isn't it funny though? No matter how advanced our military gets, you still have this
Stuff
kind
like
of stuff.
that.
Or like how do we land it? Well, how about we get a bunch of guys?
Yeah.
It's cheaper
Yeah.
to get a bunch of bodies to hang on one side than to develop
Yeah.
some kind
Dude.
of thing.
Yes.
There was times when the wing's really heavy, there would be a guy who would have to, and I'd done it before, you just pretty much whoever's lowest ranking or whoever wants to do it, you ride, and sometimes multiple people would ride the jet in, hanging on, like laying on top of the
man.
wing
Just to even it out.
to
gosh.
even the weight out, because otherwise it's dragging the whole way in because it'll break the pogo if it's too heavy.
Yeah.
And so we would have to get like 3 or 4 people, sometimes just one, sometimes the whole pogo crew except for the driver. Just sometimes one time we had to go back and get somebody and just like lay on top of
lay
the
on
wing
it
and like put on goggles and just lay on it while it taxis in.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
And still the best military in the world.
Exactly.
Even then.
Looks like a
even then.
third world country launching a plane.
Mhm.
Yeah, man.
It's pretty tough.
That's wild, man. Does the design make sense?
I mean, it does. Like, it's I would say it's kind of primitive because it's gravity fed, things like that. Like, there's a lot better ways that we know to do it now, but there's no sense in redesigning it just because of the way that the aircraft is. And it's been around, I think, since the 40s.
Yeah.
As long as you have privates.
Yeah. Yeah.
People to lay on top of the wing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you'll have-
Well, it's funny because when I was in the Navy, this is the 90s, and we had just started putting the 25 millimeter chain gun on the ships. And I don't know if it still is this way now, but at the time, you strap yourself into that thing, and it's got like two. I mean, they look like joysticks. You know what I mean? Like you would see on an airplane, kind of like a, what do you call that? The whatever. How you fly?
Oh yeah.
The whatever. But it's 2 of them, and one of them has a trigger, and the other one has the little switch, to load and stuff like that. But it's pretty primitive. Like you have these straps, like these things that go against your shoulders, and it has a gigantic muzzle brake. And when you're standing directly behind the gun, you're good. It'll rattle your brain a little bit. But if you're standing next to me, bro, you're taking all of that blast, off the 20. I mean, it's a big round. Well, fast forward to, when did I go visit my daughter in Hawaii? She was on a destroyer, and I think they had 1 on the destroyer, maybe 2. But it's all driven from the bridge. So there's a guy on the bridge with a camera, and they got like a joystick, same kind of joystick.
It's not even behind the...
No, not even behind the gun. The gun is like a robot almost, right? So you think it's cool, but you look at both designs, my 1995, 3, whatever the hell it was, versus, 2015 or whatever it was. The shit's built by the same guy, because even though it's like more advanced, it's still pretty primitive looking. Like you look at it and you're like, you could do way better than this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's still the dials and switches and the big old thing and the screws, and you're like, yeah, cool, but it still looks like shit.
Well, the military is always going to go for the lowest bidder.
Yeah.
They say. So even the coolest stuff is still going to be made probably by our enemies too.
Yeah,
right?
no kidding.
It's probably still, because it's going to be cheaper. What was it? The plastic inside the M16, not the M4s now, but the M16s.
Yeah.
You remember you used to open the back? I don't know if you...
Yes.
And then inside
100%.
was yellow. It's a plastic yellow. And the back end of the butt was where you would put your cleaning
gear.
stuff,
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
So you'd open it, right? That inside part, that plastic piece, was made by Tonka Toys.
Oh, was it?
That's why it was that yellow. Remember the Tonka yellow?
Yeah.
That was made by Tonka Toys.
No kidding.
So, at least I think it's Japanese, right?
I don't know. I think so. Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
But yeah. So just so you know,
still an ally. Still an ally.
Still
like-
an ally. Yes,
Yeah.
those guys are. But like stuff in China, we have a lot of stuff. I mean, look at our
Oh, yeah.
vaccines were made in China.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah,
So-
we're having a little bit of shortage on masks. Where do those come from? I don't know.
I don't know.
Don't even bring that up, dude.
Same thing with military equipment, right?
Yeah.
It's just lowest bidder. So you're right. You could have the highest technology, but it's kind of like taking like an old car and then putting in like a new engine and new everything else and all that, but it's still that old car look.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the military.
Yes,
still has
exactly.
The
That's
old
it.
look, but
Yes.
new technology.
They moved the console from the 57 Chevy from the to the bridge. That's
Right.
basically what they
That's
did.
basically it.
It's like
Yeah.
that thought of everybody, like they try to advertise things as being military grade, and
Yeah.
it's like people from the military are like,
And we're like, I don't know if I'd want that.
It's probably shit.
I'm not sure if I want my thing to be military grade at this point. I think I'd rather have it, just anybody else's grade.
Anybody else's grade. Yeah.
A lot of guys will buy outside equipment because it's better. Like even just pouches and stuff like that, because better quality than what stuff we get in
Yeah,
the
in
military.
In Korea, I bought my own vest because the one that they gave me fit so bad.
So bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
Well, when I was in stationed in Panama, a lot of my friends were in the SBU 26 Special Boat Unit, and SEAL Team 4 would go out there. I didn't know a lot of those guys, but I knew the SBU guys pretty well because they didn't rotate in and out; they were always there. And they would do like their parachute riggers would like basically redesign their clothing. Like they moved, like you remember the old BDUs where they had pockets here.
Oh yeah,
pockets
they had
here?
the four. Yeah.
Well, they moved the pockets from that, that are by your pelvis. They would move them up to the chest, and the ones on the chest, they moved them out to the arms so they could actually use them.
Yeah.
And then, because what they do is like they don't just throw their web gear over their stuff; they tuck everything in. I don't know if you guys did that, but they tuck everything in and then they throw their web gear over. But they couldn't use their pockets, so they and then now when you look at modern gear, it's like pockets on the sleeves and stuff like that. But in the 90s, the parachute riggers were like redoing like a vest or something like that. Yeah, their own stuff. Yeah. And I thought that was interesting how it kind of evolved. I think that's where 5'11" came from. Was a veteran.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he was a vet. 5'11" is like I'm not a climber, but 5'11" is like if you're a climber, you rate things from like 1 to 11, and a 5'11" is like the toughest climb.
Oh, okay,
so that's where it came from. The name came from.
I didn't even know that.
I thought it was a cop thing, the 5'11", because I know that a lot of law enforcement officers use that.
Alarm?
I thought it was some kind of call.
Oh, that's funny.
I wasn't even sure what 5'11".
Yeah. No, the 5'11", he was a climber, but I think he was also military, and he was building his own stuff, and that's how it evolved to the plate carriers and all the belts that they make. It's just that's the evolution of it, and it all started from a military guy who thinks military grade is shit, and I got to make it better, right? So
high quality.
Yeah, I wonder how much of the stuff that's issued is still used. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure like SEALs and Army folks and stuff like that get issued a lot of stuff that's like they probably use or don't, because you made your own vest, so that tells me a lot.
I didn't make it.
Well, I mean, you used it. You bought your own vest. Yeah. So yeah.
I don't know, because the new stuff is better for sure.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, the evolution of the pockets, even the Army ones. I think all of them, right? All of them started going where they were not vertical.
They were
right?
they were angled, like 45
angled,
degree,
right? So that you can fit your hand in through your vest. So even that's an evolution.
Yeah.
Before they were just up here, and now I guess the thought is that you're going to be at war pretty much. If they change the uniform so that it fits perfect with a vest, you know that your country's probably in for the long haul, right? Because when they had BDUs, you're like, the odds of you going to war here and there, some people will, some people won't, whatever. But as soon as they start developing stuff so that it fits at war all the time, then you're
like, going to be in it.
We're going to be in this for a while. So a lot of people made a lot of money.
Yeah, and how many other than the desert camo, what other camo do you see out there?
Well, now they're all going to across the board.
Yeah,
kind of the same that what do they call it? It's I like it better. It's closer to the Woodlands, the one they have now, right?
Oh, they do have a woodland. Oh, Marine Corps has it, right?
Well,
they used to be called the ACU, which is the Army Combat Uniform.
Right, yeah. Right? But that was the ugly one. That one's the one that's like a greenish, light green, and like digital.
That was what it,
right.
Yeah, those are the digital ones, right?
Yeah.
And then now they do have one that's closer to. It's kind of a combination of the chocolate chip ones from Desert Storm, but woodland style.
Oh,
so it doesn't. You know, the Woodlands
but it's going across the board. Like everybody,
they're all going to use the same one.
Even
Same
the Marine,
uniform. That's good.
The Marine Corps is going to be in it, which is
normally,
interesting because they swap back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, they have their summer and their winter.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised because they like to march to their own beat.
Mm-hmm.
The Marines don't like to.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's even like actually been taken hold yet.
Yeah,
Like
I'm sure the Marines will change something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they'll be like,
yeah.
we're gonna do something a little different.
tweak.
But right now, for sure, I know that Air Force and Army are the same.
Same.
Yeah,
It just makes sense.
Yes,
And I
you're
mean,
right. Yeah, you're right. You're
And
right.
The Army, the Air Force is, was a branch,
Was a branch
of the
of the
Army,
Army,
so
yeah.
it makes sense there.
You can say is. You can say is. It's okay.
I mean, was.
So what did you do in the Army?
The real quick,
Sorry, go ahead, yeah.
The Marines are probably gonna have their pockets open
Probably. Yeah.
downward.
Yeah.
So every time they open their pocket, everything
All the
just
crayons fall out.
I started in the Texas Guard
Okay.
as artillery. And then, because my recruiter literally said, there was like a few things that had a $10,000 bonus at the time, and that was one of them.
And when you're 17, 10,000 sounds like so
much.
Because you don't know what taxes are.
Yeah, but he also said artillery. I said, "What's that?" He goes, "You make things go boom." Literally, that's all he needed to say.
Hell yes.
And I said, "Okay." So I did that. So I did that for 6 years. I got one deployment under artillery unit. Then I moved to Arizona Guard, and they got rid of artillery because they went to infantry units here. So now we have I forget which one, but it's out of Hawaii, so it's a detachment out of Hawaii.
So did you get to go to Hawaii for your?
No. So I didn't. So I actually didn't end up going to infantry. They gave us an out. They said, "Well, since we're breaking your contract, you can either get out." And I think I had about a year and a half left, and or you can swap MOSs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your job. And I used to love taking videos and taking pictures and all that stuff. And so I competed in the Soldier of the Year for the state of Arizona and met some people from the public affairs. So they were taking pictures, doing interviews and all that stuff. And my sergeant, my sponsor, he was like, "Hey," he goes, "You like doing that dumb stuff, right?" He goes, why don't you go do that?" He goes, "They've never deployed." He goes, "Last time they deployed," he goes, "they went to Florida. They were at CENTCOM."
Next thing you know,
and I was like, "I got a year and a half left." Okay, cool. So I did, and I was like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna learn how to be a videographer and all that cool stuff, right? Well, literally 2 months into me switching over, they're like, "Hey, we're going to Iraq."
Of course we are.
And I'll tell you what, I worked inside. I did learn a lot about graphic design. I learned about how to make a newspaper. I mean, I was essentially, even though I was new to it, I never got to school for it because we didn't have time. We were deploying. So they just said, "What are you good at?" And I was like, "Well, I'm a good artist and I can take pictures. And if you teach me how to write, I can write."
Yeah.
And so they made me the layout design guy.
Okay.
So I learned how to do the layout design of a newspaper, and it was a 24-page newspaper every week, every Sunday.
Yeah.
It would come out. So we'd have a week to put it together, and that's where I learned all that stuff. And while that was probably the best thing I learned in the military, because there's no artillery jobs outside. There's nothing you can do.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. Well, actually, no.
I think they're necessary.
You know what? There was one that I saw. There was an artillery unit out of California. It's a civilian unit. It's not really a unit. Let me rephrase that. They take artillery guys because they take these. I guess I don't know if they're howitzers or what kind of cannon it is, but they shoot special chemicals into the forest when there's forest fires.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there is a need for that, but I'm pretty sure it's a very niche. Thing.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't think there's many jobs for artillerymen.
Yeah, I think there's probably some guy in his 70s still doing that job. So you're never going to.
So you're never going to
He's
get
going
that
to
job.
die on the job.
Yeah.
Can you imagine just shooting things into the woods all the time?
That's your job. Whenever there's a fire, it's like, hey, call that guy up. We're going to pay him.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, and you blow the dust off the thing and bam, start launching stuff.
To be fair, you can teach a monkey how to pull that lanyard, so I'm gonna get a lot of hate from the artillery. It's not hard.
It's not
across the board.
It's not hard.
It's not hard until something goes wrong.
Right. Everything. Yes. The most thing, and this is what I tell my kids too. Out of everything, when you do something hard, it's not learning necessarily that job because, like I said, they make it pretty easy. The military makes it pretty easy because you're dealing with people from very smart to not
stupid.
The smartest. So
no, it's okay. Stupid.
You have to make it so that everybody understands it.
Yeah.
And they do. They simplify it. They make it as easy as possible. But the thing that
I can still screw it up though.
I
guarantee
you'll find it. Yeah.
I can still screw it up.
Plenty of people can still screw it up.
Did you ever shoot a AT4? Have you ever seen it?
No.
So it literally has the instructions on it. Like
Sweet.
on the AT4, it has a picture and the instructions. It says hold this way and then arrow that way, right? And so you hold it. Then the next one says open this. You open this latch, and it says then this. When you're ready to shoot, aim, pull this thing out. It literally has a diagram and it tells you. And if our enemy ever saw, I mean, I'm sure they do because you can see these online. You can pull it up and see it.
Yeah.
It looks like it's meant for kids.
Yeah.
I mean, even the Claymore. Right, you've seen that, right? And the
front
says
towards enemy.
Yeah.
Just,
You gotta account for the lowest common denominator in all things, really. Like you can't like go into anything and be like, all right, I'm gonna teach this, the way that I would teach it, or the way that I would teach it to,
I would hope that going to medical school isn't taught that way, though. I would hope that you're not teaching to the low.
I feel like they still have.
I
to
think
teach
they still
the
have
low.
to. Yeah.
What do those guys become? Pediatricians or something?
Yeah. Well, the joke. What's the joke? What do you call a guy that got a D in medical school? Doctor.
Doctor still,
Right? He's still
doctor,
passed, right?
That's across even law school. Imagine like you don't know that your or that your government assigned lawyer wasn't a D law school student.
Yeah.
Or even the lawyer that you hire. They could be very well be a D law, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're even going to be bad at it.
Right.
They may crush it.
Yeah.
They just may not like school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It's pretty well. I don't know. I the only dealings I've really had with the justice system has been through my divorce, but it was amazing to me how all those lawyers knew each other. Like they know everybody in the building. You know what I mean? They're all friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
we're doing this again.
We're doing this again. Yeah.
Well,
it's
luck.
on. Yeah, man. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about jiu-jitsu. Steve, you're I feel like I had to get to know you before you kind of opened up to a lot of things, because we only talk briefly every once in a while. We trained together at Navas and saw each other at tournaments, stuff like that. But I'm always been curious, how does somebody get out of the Air Force? I mean, obviously you seem like a very competitive, physical guy. So I think jiu-jitsu is a good fit for someone like you. But what was it about jiu-jitsu that made you feel like, forget everything else, this is all I want to do?
Well, so my original exposure to jiu-jitsu was when I was 15 or 16.
Okay.
So I started off boxing, wrestling. And then I was boxing when I was younger. Local gym, I grew up in outside of St. Louis, and we could walk there. Me and one of my neighbors, his name was Markel, great dude. Could have been a great boxer. I don't know why he quit, but love the guy. We would walk or ride our bikes. We would get rides, whatever, but it was local. And then they started an MMA team. And so, I was like, I want to be an MMA fighter.
Did they do any ground stuff?
Yeah. So very minimal.
Okay.
We had a guy named Rocky Vircher. He was a Lindenwood, NAIA national champion.
Okay.
Really good wrestler. He used to teach us, some basic fundamentals of jiu-jitsu type stuff that he knew. He hadn't really dove into jiu-jitsu at that point yet.
Was it very much like
belt now.
Was it like Gracie jiu-jitsu, like the very, very fundamental stuff?
Kind of. It was,
cool.
I would say it's closely akin to I guess catch wrestling kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
We learned a Kimura and a little bit of back control, stuff like that. And MMA. And so I kind of progressed to that, and then I did light. I went to J.W. Wright's Academy in St. Louis for 2 months before I joined the military.
Okay.
And then I joined the military, got into bodybuilding, and ended up in CrossFit for a while, was competitive in that up and down California, did a bunch of competitions, stuff like that. And one day I switched gyms and I broke my ankle coming down off of a muscle up, and
oh crap.
Yeah, and it was this weird, I was in weightlifting shoes, they're really hard.
Yeah.
I was in weightlifting shoes, and I was starting to get injured more, and I was like, man, this is just I'm not that old. I'm 23 at the time, I think. And I was like, I'm not that old. I shouldn't be getting injured this often. And one of my buddies was like, hey dude, you want to do jiu-jitsu? I was like, I've done that before. I was like, yeah, why not? I used to wrestle, why not? Let's do it. And so went to Infinite Jiu-Jitsu in Roseville, California. That was back when I was stationed in California, and got started up there. And yeah, from the day I walked in, I was just this was back in middle of 2017, something like that.
Yeah.
From the day I walked in, I was like, yeah, this is where I need to be. And so I kind of stopped CrossFit from there. I couldn't pay for two memberships anyways. And then
it's basically the same cost, right? I
pretty
mean, CrossFit
close, yeah.
and Jiu-Jitsu, pretty close. Yeah.
I think I was paying more for CrossFit at the time.
Yeah.
CrossFit was like super expensive in Northern California because it was, that was kind of, and it was during the peak of
kind of the heyday, right?
Before the CrossFit Games really I don't know, they had some kind of big crazy falling out thing that happened. I didn't really follow it, but
recently.
It was within the last 5-6 years, something like that.
The owner, right? Something. The guy.
It was like something with Dave Castro and like the whole thing. I don't know. Some CrossFit people are probably freaking out. They all know. They're like, oh no, but they had some kind of falling out. But back then, I'm sure it's a little bit cheaper now to get into CrossFit, and I still love that sport. I still apply a lot of it to like different things that I do, But yeah, I kind of once I got back into jiu-jitsu and I got beat up by people and I was like, man, this is it.
I love it.
I was like, this is what I got to do. And so like since then, I progressed like my training outside of jiu-jitsu has always been progressing towards like ways to improve my jiu-jitsu. So that's kind of been my progression through like keeping up with that and like still training outside of jiu-jitsu and still doing, putting as much time as I can into jiu-jitsu at the same time.
I love it. Yeah. And you're a really good coach, man. You're a really good coach. I mean, all the feedback I get is like all the like you're not teaching over anybody's head. Like, like you're steady, even keel, and everybody likes your teaching style. So did you do any instruction in the military? Did you do anything like that?
Yeah. So in the military, I did, I got out as an E6. So,
okay.
So I had some different times that I was teaching. I was a, resource advisor before I got to my last base, because I was only there for 4 months in my last base.
Yeah.
But before I got there, I was a resource advisor. So I was like, in charge of like 400 plus people.
Wow.
So I had worked with people, done a lot of teaching things in different aspects. Cause like I said, I was and we were talking about this before we started, but I was on the U2 for a long time.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of teaching with that as I was, towards the end of my time at Beal, and just kind of teaching people how to, cause like that, again, that aircraft doesn't really have a troubleshooting tree. It just kind of like,
hang from the wing. Just hang from the wing.
Know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And share it.
Yeah. That's why you guys had to do CrossFit. You guys have to learn how to hang from the wing.
Jump up on the wing and be able to hang on it.
Yeah.
Level a plane out.
Yeah. How about you, Mario? How'd you find jiu-jitsu? I mean, because you've been training with me. How long have you been training?
Just over 2 months now, because I did the 6-week challenge, and now it's been about almost, we're on second week after that. So we're on 8 weeks.
8 weeks. Okay. Yeah.
But I first got it in, and going back to real quick, Steve is a really great coach, by the way. And, I haven't written anything or sent you anything. I should, but I'll just do it here. We'll do a live recording. One of the things that, and I'm not just saying it because he's here, but I can tell, is that he does things that make you remember certain steps, right? Like even when you do the swoop, right? Those little noises, those work. Those cues work. I used to have an instructor in the military. They used to do a snap. You do the snap like that to make everybody focus on that spot.
Yep.
And some people was like, that's degrading. You're like, no, it's not. He literally said he would just be talking and he would be snapping and everybody be looking. And he wouldn't have to stop the class and say, hey guys, pay attention. He would just snap and they'd be like, oh, look down here. And you're looking at what he's doing with someone's foot. In the military, right, cadences and all that are very important. So that's how I can tell. Like, he knows what he's doing, right? Those things are not just for fun. It's not just to make people laugh or whatever. But if people chuckle, I guarantee you they're going to remember that. And they say, oh, yeah, swoop. And I don't know how many times I'd like to take what do you call it, like a questionnaire or something. How many times people were competing and were like, oh yeah, swoop. And remembered little things like that, right? Not just that one specific, but other stuff that your instructor told you. So that is how I can tell you, I can validate. Obviously, you don't need my validation, but from my point of view, that's the telling of a good instructor. So, and you do that very well. So thank you. And you're the only, I think we've had, because I've done the no-gi a few times and then Saturday class. So I've met 2 or 3 other people. I couldn't tell you their name because I'm old, but I mean, I just learned his name this last week, So and he's been coaching me for over 6 weeks now. So,
yeah. And what you're going to find, I don't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but what you're going to find is when you're dealing with an instructor as consistent as he is, that class takes on a personality. So when you go to a different class, you're almost going to be a snob. Like, that's not how we do it.
Right.
What's wrong with these guys?
And
right?
I try not to do that.
Yeah.
I try not to do that because
Yeah.
I learned. So going back to your question, from the military, I learned. Well, I went to a combatives class. This was my first deployment in 2004, and I was in Fort Hood. And so they said, I think I just graduated with like less than 6 months from basic training, right? So I was still in great shape. And so they picked some of and I was a private, so they picked some of the privates and a few specialists, right? To go and do this 1 week training. I was like, 1 week training? And so every morning we'd get up and we were in our barracks at Fort Hood and we'd get picked up by a bus and they'd take us to a little gym outside. I think it was outside of the base. And it was a wrestling gym, right? A local high school gym. And cause we literally had the whole battalion. So we probably had about 100 people. Imagine 100 people on mats training. So that's why they had these whole basketball gyms. They would put mats all down.
What was the ratio of instructors to student?
So they had one head instructor and then they had about 4 underneath them. So assistant
and were they like certified to teach the course, the guys underneath them?
This is the military, right?
Yeah.
So when you say certified, it's military certified.
Right. They had that 1 week course and then they're good to go.
Yeah. So I say jiu-jitsu because it's the most basic, right? It's the very most basic rear naked choke, arm bars. You don't get into the leg stuff. You don't get into throws, anything else. This is level 1. 40 hours. Now, I don't know if you know the history of the military. So this is the combat training. The stuff that we used to go through in basic, right, with the pugil sticks and then the fighting and the whatever, you just go into a sand pit and you make people fight. I don't know if did you guys ever do anything like that in basic?
I did not.
Very basic. So in the Army, that's one of the things you have to pass, just like, anything else. Well, when they revamped this course, they actually went out to California in 95 to Torrance with the Gracie family. So the Gracies are the ones that actually created the level 1, level 2, level 3 combatives instruction for the military. So everything was very much based on Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's the first time I ever...
Which is legit. I mean, legit. Yeah. I mean, if you have a guy who's proficient in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu against someone who is not, it's not even going to be close. They're going to dominate. So, yeah.
And even at that level, right, where you're just even the most basic stuff, once you learn that, then, at least in the battlefield. And so the concept of the military combatives is the true characteristic of a warrior is the willingness to meet with the enemy, right? And so they'd always teach you, right? And also, and I know we'll get to those positions when you're trying to reverse rear, someone's got you in the rear mount or something like that, depending on where you are, right? You never want to give up your back. And they always say, you got to face your enemy.
Oh, wow.
You always got to face your enemy. And so that was taught you is like, yeah, don't turn this way and give them your back. You most people will, right? Because they don't want to get hit. You start throwing stuff at them, even a slap, and people are going to, kind of cower a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It's like you have to be willing. If you want to survive the fight, you have to face your enemy.
Yeah.
And when you're down there and trying to escape certain things, you can't do it by giving them your back.
Yeah.
Right? So that always stuck with me too. And so that was my introduction. So I did that one while I was on that deployment. Then when I moved to Arizona, my unit, again, they got a slot to go down and do another level 1 training, same thing. So it was the same one. I was already certified. I didn't have to go because I already had that certificate. In the military, you don't get points for the same school if you go twice, right? So it didn't matter to me, but I just was so hooked, and I was never in a school or anything like that. So I went to that training again. And that's where I was telling you that I got those scars on my, what do you call it, right? Forearms. From because we would do every morning, and these are 8-hour days. So, and imagine, I would love nothing more than to get paid to just train for 8 hours a day. And back then you're like exhausted, but I mean, we'd get up, we'd go and do our stuff, probably about 20, 30 minutes, same thing of exercise, running around, push-ups, sit-ups, all that stuff, and then we do like we called it swimming, but what is?
I mean, it's, you're talking about like
when pummeling,
pummeling. Yeah. That's the thing is the military was also good at that because you're teaching to the masses, so they had certain names, right? So like what was it called? We would call it combing their hair, was when you would put them in the rear naked choke, because they would teach you to put your hand over them and then bring the knuckles back, right? And so you're, oh yeah, comb their hair. Oh yeah, sweep or paint the floor, right, for a kimura.
Yeah.
So paint
Americana,
the floor with, Americana. So they had all these different names. So now when I say it, I'm like, yeah, swimming. And they're like, what do you mean swimming? I was like, when you're swimming, they teach you to
pummeling.
Kind of more like the action of pummeling is like to swim.
To swim, right? That's why they call it, to swim. So you're kind of like doing this. So anyways, and every day for like a full week doing that. And so I told him I had these scars here from just the skin going raw from imagine and those BDUs weren't fun.
Oh, so you were in uniform.
You were in uniform.
Oh, wow.
We were in uniform.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, it was
boots and all.
Not boots. That was the only thing we would take off our boots.
Okay.
But we were in uniform. Yeah, and sometimes they were like, you should probably flip them over because the pockets and stuff were getting caught in people's fingers were breaking. And, I had a guy's finger get caught in my pant pocket. And when I rolled, it literally twisted. It was sideways when he got up. Yeah.
Ouch.
So those rash guards. I mean those uniforms. They're not meant for.
No.
But it's the military, right?
Yeah.
So went through that class again, and then on my second deployment, they were offering the level 2, which is 80 hours. That's more advanced, and now you're adding stand up stuff and things like that, But to pass each class, the first level, it's called you just got to be able to take a punch. So you learn how to take a punch. You have to be able to stop somebody.
Time out. How do you learn how to take a punch?
You get punched. Literally, that's how the military teaches you. You just get, so they have the instructor.
You get punched.
The instructor has to be level 2 or above, right? And so they take you through a training where you have to either do like some kind of like a seatbelt grip where you're stopping them from hitting you, or something from behind, right? You're putting your head low on their. I mean, it's very basic, stopping somebody how to hit you, the most basic, right?
Yeah.
And then the instructors just get to literally just punch you. So they just punch you and punch you and punch you until
Awesome.
you stop them. You got about 2 minutes to stop them, and you have to do it like 3 times, something like that. I don't know if it's changed now, but once you get through that and you go through the 40 hours, then you graduate. That's the military.
That's interesting because like if you ever roll with somebody who just does MMA and that you just roll jiu-jitsu with them, they almost seem sloppy in the roll. And I don't mean that offensively. I mean, the reason I say that is because, I got my knee shield in pretty easy on this guy on a half guard. Well, because he was posturing himself to beat the shit out of me. To punch me in the face, right? So the reason there was that gap is because he's not allowed to hit me in the face. If he were allowed to hit me in the face, it'd be different. Yes, it'd be very, very different. And I find that interesting. So that makes a lot of sense to me that you would be taught to, control one side. We don't really talk about that a lot, and sometimes like if I'm teaching like a cross collar choke, I'll show people how to do it with a t-shirt, how to use their t-shirt to set up those grips. But we really don't talk about that a lot. We're so into it's gotten so far into the sport aspect
competition,
of it. Yeah. And the unfortunate part, I don't want to call it unfortunate. I love them both. Like I love the sport aspect, and I love the self-defense aspect. But I really find that you're learning self-defense in a playful manner.
Yeah.
You really are.
Yeah.
And I've had students, I'm not proud of this at all. I've had students get into altercations at school, and, parents will come and talk to me about it. One of them was on film. Kids, they just film it, and it got back to the parent. And the dad showed me as this kid that I taught years ago. And the kid, he was undersized, so he would always get just squashed. But he always had this like goofy look on his face, like a half smile. And, every time he was rolling. While I'm watching this video, he has that little half smile on his face, but he was able to stop the fight 4 times without throwing a single punch. So the kid would start punching him, and he threw a sick armbar from guard. And then they broke it up, and the kid hit him again. It started again. Then he took his back and started choking him. But he was able to control the kid 100% without throwing a single punch or taking damage. Yeah. And that's kind of what we're teaching them, right? Yeah. I don't want anyone to get hurt. I certainly don't want to teach a kid to be a bully, right? Because he could have easily controlled a kid and beat him up or hurt him pretty badly or choked him out, but he didn't. Because we're learning this stuff playfully, right? Where you're going to be fighting for your life one day. That's what they're teaching, right? So it's very different.
That's why it's don't turn your back too.
Yeah.
Because like in sport jiu-jitsu, it's like sometimes there's times that you will
turtle
turn
up.
your turtle.
Yeah,
and
better than another position,
exactly.
Right? But in real life,
you're not going to put your back to somebody because what if they pull a knife? What if they pull a gun? What if they pull a weapon out and your back's turned to them? It's like, okay, there's you know, definitely a time and place, and you don't want like too much. Again, yeah, it's like kind of like you would hope people would think about that if it did come to that instance. They're not like, I mean, obviously, like you would hope that they have enough jiu-jitsu skill that if they're in a fight, that they're not turtling up in a in a fight.
They get it
Yeah.
outside.
But here's the thing, man, and we've all screwed around with our street clothes, right, with friends or whatever. We've all done it, and the difference is. People say, well, it's not realistic to train in a gi. It's not realistic. No gi's not realistic because no one's, whatever. But when you're even screwing around with somebody who has no idea what they're doing, it doesn't matter what you're wearing.
No.
You could wear a friggin' tuxedo and still beat their ass.
Yeah.
Because you just know how to control them. You know how to throw that knee across their body to flatten out their hips and make them go, right? And you just know that stuff. So to say that it's not realistic, okay, we're not punching each other, but I also don't shoot my friends at the range when we go shooting, right? That's not real. To make it more realistic, right?
Go run out there real quick.
Well, maybe those crazy. Have you seen those crazy Russian videos?
I don't know. Are those real? Sometimes they're
shooting each other.
Yeah.
No, they're shooting at
close to each other.
Yeah.
They're shooting like over their shoulders and stuff. Like it's insane, dude.
Down to their feet.
Have you seen the one where the guy's disarming the dude and it's actually firing a live gun?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
It could be a blank.
Well, yeah, you're right. But I have seen that one where the guy, he's like, yeah, shoot me. So like in when you see those videos, it's always like a guy with just a fake gun and disarms them, right? But this guy's actually having them shoot the gun, and before it goes off, the guy's doing like some John Wick stuff.
Yeah, no, he's got the gun, bang, and then he disarms them.
So he gets it off track,
yes,
like off center,
like just
enough to yeah.
But it's not like the guy's coming from a holster. The guy's got a gun pointed at his face.
Oh, and he's like,
grabs it, right?
It's got to be a blank.
It's gotta be, dude. It's gotta be. But like you get that, that feeling, like, oh my gosh,
sucks.
you know,
even that sucks going off in front of your face.
Oh yeah,
right
that would hurt you.
Yeah.
That would hurt you.
But that's Russia though,
dude. No. But yeah, so that's the thing. Yes, you can train realistically if you don't want to train often.
Right.
I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Right.
You know, I can only get punched in the face so many times before I can't get punched in the face anymore. But yeah, that's always the analogy I use. Like, it's not realistic. Well, I don't shoot my friends at the range. We shoot paper.
Well, even in MMA now, right? They're saying a lot of people are going to the not sparring as much. There used to be a time where sparring was the only thing. Like you would train in your specific. Well, you would train. Once it started developing more, you would train in different techniques, but they would emphasize sparring right before a fight. And now they're like, no way. Like, I'll do two or three light sparring.
Does though.
Yeah.
Sean
That's
Strickland?
all he does.
Yeah.
Cowboy Cerrone.
Yeah.
Cowboy Cerrone.
He only hits pads, and he goes, I know how to fight. So
right. So he doesn't. He doesn't spar.
I'm the best boxer in MMA. What's his name?
Oh,
Streamer.
Yes.
I don't know.
I can't remember his name. I'm sure we'll catch shit for that.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, the thing is, like, I hate to say this, like, I love jiu-jitsu. I love jiu-jitsu. Just the fact that I'm an academy owner and I've got, like, whatever. It's like I'm over the moon. Like, I'm so grateful, but I'm not a fan. Like, I'm not an MMA fan. I can't watch jiu-jitsu. I really, like, for me, it's like going to a high school graduation of people you don't know. I'm like, hey, good job. I don't care. I really don't. But I'll if I'm studying a technique and then I can find some video live, like, I'll do that because I love studying technique. But I can't fanboy and watch people.
A student, not a fan.
Yeah, I'm a student, not a fan. That's okay. Now I feel better about myself. Thank you.
I got you.
Well, because I used to catch some crap. People would be like, oh, did you see this guy do this to that guy? I was like, no, I didn't watch it. I mean, I'll watch some highlights here or there, but
that just shows, like, that's what it takes to own a gym and to run, because you've got all these people. You're responsible for all these people, and those people, when they go out there, they're representing you. So that in itself is, and if people get too caught up on all the small stuff or the things that don't matter, because watching, now I'm not saying you shouldn't watch those things. I used to be a huge MMA fan, UFC fan, and then as I got older and my jobs got crazier and I wanted to stay in shape or do something, I had to pick and choose what I had to do. And so now I'm choosing my health. So I have to cut out some stuff, and I'm not going to cut out the good things I build up. I'm going to cut out the things that I like, but they don't necessarily improve my life.
Max Holloway.
Max Holloway, that's right. Max Holloway.
Oh, Max Holloway. Yes.
He's got great hands, though. He does have great hands.
He doesn't spar.
Really?
He doesn't spar.
Yeah.
Or he stopped. He stopped in the last like few years.
A lot of those guys from Hawaii have good hands.
Oh, yeah.
Just natural hands for some reason. Because BJ Penn, while he was an amazing, jiu-jitsu guy.
Dude was the most durable human being.
He could insane. Yeah. Insane. Yeah.
He could fight. Like, he could fight.
Yeah.
With his hands too.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever tried propelling yourself through the water all the time? It's really hard.
Oh, when he got in really good shape.
Yeah.
And he started doing where he was jumping out of the pool and all. Yeah. I tried it after that. There's a few shin.
Did you try it?
Yeah, I've tried it.
Yeah.
On like the 2 or 3 foot side.
Yeah. There's things that I'm like, I was listening to a podcast, believe it or not. It was Pete Attia and Huberman. Is it Andrew Huberman?
Peter Attia.
Yeah.
Attia,
yeah, and they were talking about things that you would like to do in your last decade of life. And if you think about it, he says, like, they were talking about all these markers, like grip strength is a big marker, being able to lift heavy things is a big marker, but you need to set goals to do things in your last decade of life that most people can't do. And you got to start doing them now. Start training for them now. Like simple things like, can you get out of a pool without using the ladder or the stairs? Can you walk up a flight of stairs? Can you walk across the room without the assistance of a cane? That type of thing.
Yeah.
And it was a really cool, I haven't finished the podcast. It was like 2 hours, 40 minutes long. So I'm like right in the middle of it. But they were talking like things like, if you can hold a 90-degree squat, air squat, body squat, for like 2 minutes, you're in the, after you're 40, after 40, you're in the top whatever percentile. And then grip strength was another one. If you can hold your body weight distributed into 2 pieces, like 2 dumbbells or whatever, or kettlebells, and if you could hold that for a minute, you're in the upper percentile. Women is like 75% of their body weight, something like that. But it's not like you got to hold it all with one hand. It's like two different. And so I think about those things, and I feel like, okay, well, I'm pretty close to ahead of the curve, right? I'm not going to jump out of a pool,
right.
Especially not at 51. But yeah, those are the things that I think about. Like, and BJ Penn, he was not just inspiring by his ability to jump out of pools. Like, he did so many things like in the grappling world that most people don't give him a lot of credit for.
I mean, quickest black belt, right?
Yeah, like 3 years, something like that. Him and Kayotera.
How is that possible? Like, what did he do?
Speed racer.
And it's real, right? It was legit. Do you think? Or
he is a legit black belt. He is and he's a good judo player too.
But let's say at the 3-year mark when he did graduate, was that? I mean, or were they kind of advancing him a little bit?
He wouldn't be able to compete in IBJJF.
Yeah,
because he needs.
Who cares?
Yeah,
he won. Right. He won a world championship. I believe is a world championship in judo as a judo white belt.
Oh wow.
So there, yeah. And I never question that legitimacy. I'm just asking from like a professional, like how real can that be? I mean, what did he have to do? Just every day, just train and grind every day? Is that what it would take? Or show?
He was training every day.
Yeah, it's not just that. Like,
show an understanding of the moves.
I haven't seen, like I said, I don't watch jiu-jitsu. I study jiu-jitsu, but I haven't seen enough of BJ Penn's like competitive life to speak intelligently about that. But I have seen a lot of Kayotera stuff, and he was the same way. He was a phenom, 3-year black belt, maybe 3 or 4-year black belt, something like that.
Him and like Kit Dale, I think was really fast too.
Yeah, but Kayotera would sign up in the ultra heavy, which means the person that he's fighting is over 220 pounds. Kayotera might be 140
small
right now. Like, he's a retired competitor, which means he's not in competition shape. He's probably get to rooster if he really tried.
Yeah,
but he would fight ultra heavies and win.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and at the highest level.
The highest level.
Mikey Musumeci.
Yeah, Mikey Musumeci. And the reason these guys, like, maybe with the exception of what's the young kid, Brazilian kid, Mika Galvão. Mika Galvão got his black belt a little bit early, so he was kind of disqualified from competition, but he murdered everybody. He was so freaking good. I think he got his black belt at like 17. And I think you got to be like 18 or 19.
Oh, minimum. Really?
Yeah. So jiu-jitsu does a really good job of that. So they have a kid system,
right,
a juvenile system, and an adult system, right? So the kids' belt levels are different than the adult belt levels. But you can't advance. You'll never see a 9-year-old black belt in jiu-jitsu. It's never going to happen, right? I mean, and I'm not...
Even if he was a 9-year-old black belt, I'd still kick his ass as a white belt. I don't care.
Yeah, man. But
we'll see.
But jiu-jitsu doesn't even let you get to a certain point in the kids' belts until you hit a certain age level, right? So you're not going to see a 9-year-old green belt either. You know what I mean? They're usually about 14 when they hit green belt, and that's after like 9 years of training.
And what's green belt for kids?
So green belt,
they're crazy.
yeah, they're rolling at a black belt level.
Okay.
But here's the crazy thing: to get to the end of your green belt, you probably have to train about 10 years. Okay, 10 years of training. Then those kids are not eligible for any other belt except blue.
And then they just go beat up blue belts. So what is it?
In the
Cole
real
Latte a green belt? Or was he an orange belt? I know he was.
I don't remember.
He was something. But
So when you say kids under 18, or you're talking
the year they turn
16?
16.
You get your blue belt.
Yeah,
Wow.
the year you turn 16, you're eligible for your blue belt.
And that's a legit blue belt now. Now you're talking.
They
an
get
adult.
their blue belt, but they're smoking. Blue
Yeah,
belt.
they're
They are, 'cause
murdering.
they're ahead of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they get their purple, and they're just like the Cole Bate is a good example because he was been training forever, and then he's like 18 now. He got his black belt recently, but he was like blue belt crushing everybody, purple belt crushing everybody.
Yeah.
You know, just as each level, just
It's
crushing everybody.
it's not even
because he'd been
fair.
training for
It's
so
not.
long.
Yeah, it's not even fair. So here's the thing: some kids will be a blue belt 2 years as a juvenile, and then 2 more years as an adult when they hit 18. Right. So then by the time they get their purple belt, they've been training 14 years.
Yeah. Oh.
You know, it takes roughly 9 to 10 to get a black belt. These kids have been training 14 years, and they're still a few years away from getting their black belt.
Right.
So as they progress, like that's those phenoms that you see, those kids that you see on the mats in competition where you're like, yeah, I don't belong in the same room with this guy. You know, but I think we're going to see the world championships go to much younger kids in the near future. Younger. I hate to say this, but I don't know that you're going to see a 33-year-old world champion in like 10 years.
There's so many young kids now. It's like you're like seeing some of the, like, I don't know, like Andy Varela, his kids that he's training up. Those kids are crazy.
Yeah, the Rotolo
because they're
brothers.
just like him.
Yeah.
The Rotolo brothers. Yeah, just like the kids coming out of some of these places. It's like, man.
And here's the best part.
I wish I would have trained at that.
I know, right? But here's the best part. Like, they're not punching each other in the face. You can train jiu-jitsu every day. Right. As long as your body holds up, you can train jiu-jitsu every day. You know, and you know, these kids are not just what a lot of kids and parents don't understand. This isn't like soccer. You know what I mean? Where you could go for an hour of practice, you know, a couple times a week and then play on the weekend and be competitive. These kids are training early morning. These kids are staying after training. These kids are cleaning the gym. These kids are coming in on weekends. These kids are drilling hours and hours and hours and hours. And when they, you know, people are like so like amazed when somebody innovates something. The guy spent 1,000 hours on the mat this year. You know what I mean? He spent
probably just trained that move.
Yes.
That set.
Yeah. And that's where the innovation comes from. I mean, and I don't think Eddie Bravo gets enough credit for the innovation, the innovator that he is. When I see somebody come up with something like new, I always think like, so did Eddie Bravo. He came up with a whole new system, right? Yeah. He doesn't get enough credit.
People are like, he just renamed stuff. It's like, no, he came up with an entire
because like the Twister, wasn't that one of the more popular ones?
Like
that
the truck, the entire truck system, which is like where the Twister is built off of that system.
Yeah.
That whole system is pretty much Eddie, like, I mean, there was people doing things similar, but he made a system out of it.
Yeah,
right.
He made it to where it's available to people.
But it was based off of the fundamental jiu-jitsu stuff. So yes, he just kind of built off of something that already existed. But the thing
that's
is,
what everything is.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
that's
but
what everything
did the Gracie
is.
family.
That's what everything is.
They did it from the
Japanese jiu-jitsu, stuff
Musashi
like that.
or whatever.
Yeah. That might have been before their time. Musashi might have been
what was that dude?
3,000 years before.
That's the guy who wrote
Maeda.
Maeda.
Yeah. Yeah, Maeda.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so
I'm not a jiu-jitsu knowledge guy.
I read a couple books. That's it. Yeah. But yeah, speaking of books, man, I'm not getting paid to say this, but I keep telling people about this book, Worth Defending. If you haven't read it, you got to read it, dude. You'll love it. You'll love it. Richard Bressler, who's been on the show, he was Jorge and Gracie's first American student. Jorge and Gracie lived with Richard. So and Rorion is credited for bringing jiu-jitsu to the States. He was the creator of the UFC, all that other stuff. So he was kind of like the
California,
the pioneer
right?
of
California.
Yeah, Torrance. Yeah. So he was the pioneer. So, and the thing is, like, what a lot of people don't understand, and you and I come from the same culture, and your culture might be the same. I don't know, but when American culture is like you have a single family home, right? And if you have a roommate, you each have your own bedroom, you share the living room, you share the kitchen, stuff like that. In our culture, if there's room, there's people coming. Like we can fit two in the living room. Hey, bro, come on up. Let's go. I could totally have room for you. And that was kind of like a culture shock for Richard because not only were they all like piled into this house, but they loved it because that's how they grew up.
Right.
And you got to read that book, dude. You'll love it.
What's the name of it again?
It's Worth Defending.
Worth Defending.
Like live a life that's worth defending.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's very cool.
I was listening to there's actually Rogan talking to Cam Haines, I think, the archer, right?
Yeah.
And they were talking about John Danaher. Sometime they got it. And so he was talking, they played a clip where he's talking about how everything you do in life is only a certain percentage of things that happen to you that are life changing. Like today, something might happen to you that says I'm on the road to jiu-jitsu now. Like something sort of like what I'm probably going through, a pivotal moment. Yeah. And I've had a few of those. And he broke it down. He goes, and how many of those do you normally get? Because normally people ask you, how was your day? You're like, you have to think, right? He goes, so he broke it down because before he was the jiu-jitsu master, he was a philosopher, I think, right?
Yeah. He has a PhD.
Yeah. And so
he was also a bouncer. So he's got a lot of life experience.
So he wanted to learn and see what is important in life. And he goes, when you break it down, he goes, only 5% of your life, if you go by that. Now, I think he's wrong because I think you can find meaning in so many other things, but I understand his concept. He's saying that means that you're only 5% you're only living for 5% of your life because those are only the 5% meaningful things that have happened to you in your lifetime. 95, and he goes, by that measurement, 95% of your life is bullshit. He goes, it's not meaningful. And you're like, oh man, when you break it down like that. So he goes, so you have to do all those little things and concentrate and focus on what you want to do.
Yeah.
If you do too much, if you spread yourself, he goes, you're not doing anything, you're not worth anything. And so that's how he explains his kind of walk into jiu-jitsu and how that's all he does. He just lives, breathes, and
that's very much like success principle-esque. It's like when you need a definite major purpose, and then you need to like have the faith to walk it out. So like having that purpose, having that like whatever John Danaher's purpose is, probably to teach as many people as possible. His system of jiu-jitsu. And he had to like have that definite purpose and have like a burning desire for it and the faith to walk it out.
Yeah.
And
what do you think is more effective, or what do you think is more worthwhile? Reaching as many people as possible, or reaching a few people intimately?
That's profound. that's tough to decide on because you would want to reach as many people as possible intimately. You would want to be able to like, so I have a personal, like, I guess you would call it like my life motto or like my mission statement in life. And it is to touch the lives of as many people as possible in a positive and empowering way, ensuring I leave behind a legacy that continues to affect the hearts and the minds of its creatures. And so that to me is like as many lives, but in an intimate way.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that having just like a few, I would want to like have a few intimate connections, maybe at a higher level, but still be able to like give as much as possible to as many people as possible, because you never know, even if because your perception is really your reality. So even if you think that you only gave that person some small, minute thing that maybe isn't big to you, that could change their life.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you're sowing seed everywhere and you're giving love, giving positivity, giving whatever you can to as many people as possible, you're offering the opportunity to change a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
Versus like staying in a small sphere. Yeah, you can affect those people's lives in a very positive way, but maybe not, the opportunity to affect like a bunch of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's important to know because I think when you ask that question, is it good to affect a ton of people, have a bigger reach, right, or a closer, tight-knit group? And for me, the answer is like, well, I've been talking about this. I'm like, I'm kind of tired of the whole reaching a big group because everybody's so different, and I'm more about the older I get, the tighter my group needs to be, right? And so for me, it's like I don't have the capacity to reach all those people, right? But the way Steve said it, I feel like that is possible because if you just live your life to a certain way, then you don't necessarily have to have a big classroom. Like he doesn't have to have 100 students to affect them. It's just everybody he's talking to or touching. The freaking Black Rifle coffee person that you got your coffee from this morning, the way you interacted with them, the way you interacted on the way out here. I mean, even the way you drive and the way you I take this all the way to driving. I go, if I don't react a certain way, that person that was pissed off and flipped me off, and then I don't do anything back, like I used to, where I might tailgate him a little bit, give him a little bit of the business.
Yeah. If
I don't do that, that person's day all of a sudden is like, whatever, they did what they did, and then they go on about their day, and hopefully they go, maybe I was a dick because they didn't do anything back to me, they didn't do anything else, and that is like, you're not even touching that person, you're not even talking to them. That could change them, right? So if you think about it from that perspective, and also if my kids are watching, when my kids listen to, let's say my daughter, and she talks about her great grandma, or not her grandma, and she's a bad driver. Oh, she gets so pissed off. She gets angry. She's listening to those things. She's picking up on it. So my daughter's telling me about this, and I'm like, I don't want my daughter to think that it's okay to be even if you are in the right, to be that person, because you never know, especially when driving, right? I know I'm picking on that because that is one of the instances where you actually meet with somebody and could have the most impactful moment if you crash. That's gonna be meaningful in good or bad to both of you, or where you're literally have never heard their voice and you can go on about your day. That's how quickly things could change in a road rage incident. Right? Yeah,
it's the difference between 15 seconds. They're them being in your life for 15 seconds or 15 years.
And so if you can handle your stuff there and affect somebody in the least amount of touch or interaction, contact interaction, then you can definitely do it with the grocery person that you see every day, with the guy at the fuel pump, whatever. All those people, the Circle K guy. I make relationships, not big, but with every single person if I do something constantly. So I'm a guy that I would rather go somewhere because of customer service than pricing. For example, when, just Sprint, I was a Sprint guy forever because they were very easy to deal with. They were, whatever.
And you hate receiving phone calls.
And so, but the pricing might have not always been the best. There was always cheaper stuff, but they made it easy for me. And that's just my experience, right? But that's what I'll do with people. And so if that Circle K is a little bit out of my way, it's not convenient. It's maybe 2 minutes. That's not too bad. But most people would just go the convenient way. I would rather go out of my way just because I want to see Joey or I want to see so-and-so, because every morning, he's cool. He's out there smoking a cigarette, or he's in there talking to people, whatever the case might be, right? Those mean something to me. And I think the only way to be able to do that without spreading yourself too thin is to just live that way. Right? Because you can't give yourself to 100 people, completely, but you meet 100 people throughout
if your
the
life
day.
Becomes it, rather than like you're saying, if your life becomes that, if you become the person who just, I try to give a positive impact to whoever I meet.
Then you are touching more people. So it depends. You have to be careful with what, because there's people who love teaching, big classes. And or there's people who that is their life's goal, is to be a teacher or an educator or a boss, right? A leader in that, and they're good at that, and they're really good at that. And my stage, like, that's not what I'm seeking. I'm not seeking to be a leader anymore. I guess I am in a different way, right? If I just do good, you're a leader just in general, right? So in essence, I'm more of a leader for my family. If I can do the best for them, then it can't be bad for everybody else.
If you have anyone in your life at all that depends on you, you are a leader. Period. You have there's no choice about it. If you have kids, they depend on you, you're a leader. If you have a spouse that depends on you, you're a leader. Students, anything like that. So I mean, it's really difficult to not be a leader. And you don't have to lead by, like tyranny, just by example. It's simple. It's simple. Right. Like you were saying, interact in a positive way. I had not my best moment yesterday. I get this message that my bill for my anesthesia for my knee surgery got sent to a collection agency. So it was a big circle. So had the surgery. I get a bill for the MRI, and I'm like, I'm not paying this. It's ridiculous, right? And then I get a bill for anesthesiologist. I'm like, what's going on? This is like way higher because I've had knee surgery before, and it didn't cost this much. So I call the folks, and they're telling me, oh, yeah, the insurance company said it wasn't medically necessary. That was the MRI. I'm like, so what do I do typically for a knee surgery? Just cut me open and root around till you find something? Or do we take a picture and find out what we're going after, right? Anyway, it was a big thing. A couple months went by, and then I finally, I had called the insurance company before, and I said, hey, what gives? And like, oh, we just need to verify that you don't have secondary insurance. I'm like, why? Oh, we just need to verify. I mean, why? I mean, I have insurance.
Right.
Why do you need to verify that I have secondary insurance? Because you can bill them too? And they're like, no. They're going on and on. I don't know if they're going to split the cost or whatever. I was like, well, I don't, right? So they get it all straightened out. I pay the MRI. It was a couple $100. It wasn't $2,600 that they were trying to charge me. And then I get a bill for the anesthesiologist for $69. I'm like, this is way better, right? This makes more sense, right? With insurance, right? Then I get a message from a collection agency. Hey, we need your $69 and blah, blah, blah cents. And I was like, what? So I call the guy, and I'm fuming. And halfway through my rant, I realized this guy doesn't even work for the insurance company or the anesthesiologist. Right. He's just a guy trying to do his freaking job on the phone, and I'm being an asshole. And I took a deep breath, and I'm like, I am so sorry, dude. I'm so sorry. I know I paid it. I said, I know this has nothing to do with you, but I just got an updated bill like 2 days before, right? It's on my thing where I'm going to send, the money out. And then this happens. Like, it wasn't the fact that the guy that I got that message. The fact was months ago when I'm talking to the insurance companies, they're screwing me around. And it all culminated to this point where this poor guy from a call center, who knows where he is in the world, had to hear my crybaby bullshit, right? Because I got to pay him $70. But yeah, so that was not my proudest moment. But I hope I recovered well because I apologized to the guy. But I was pissed, dude. I don't know, man. When it comes to like pharmaceuticals or insurance or anything, I already have my shoulders up. You know what I mean? I already have my guard up. Yeah. So this poor guy. If you're one of my 12 listeners, buddy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I yelled at you. But yeah, it was not my proudest moment.
Those are the moments where you're right. You do test yourself. Like the fact that you even realized like all that in your head. I was like, this is all culmination of what I, went through 2 months, 3 months ago. Even then, just that realization, I think that's what we strive for. Yeah. Right. Because who isn't going to be pissed off? I'd be more worried if you weren't pissed off, like that, like your student that was just smiling. Yeah, like that to me is scary. When you were saying that kid, when he was like, "Oh yeah," when I used to watch him grapple, he would have this smile, right? Yeah. And then when you actually saw him using it, he was like, "This is the moment." I think we all.
I've been waiting my whole life for this.
Yes, and so that's a little bit more scary, right? So I think that's a pretty natural reaction. So I think it's just understanding that too, because people
recognizing it and stopping it in the middle of it, because like most people will. Like, it's not about, it's about how you allow that how you allow it to carry you forward in the day. Because some people will let that get them mad, and then they're going to go about the rest of their day mad. It's kind of like, to your point, it's like you let that affect you, and now the rest of your day, you're giving negative energy to other people. Yeah. You're giving, you may go in to teach class, and now, the kids feel that. Yeah. You may go in to do. But if you recognize it and you can stop it and you can turn it around and you're like, hey, look, I'm sorry. I acted out of character. Yeah. And then you're able to go on to the rest of the day, and you're able to still put out that, like,
get it out,
that positive energy. And like, sometimes you have to express it in a way. I mean, maybe he was unfortunate to be the brunt of that expression, but I'm sure he's dealt with worse.
I'm sure.
And most people don't stop and apologize in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I stopped mid-sentence too. I was like, okay, he has nothing to do with this. He has nothing to do with this.
That guy's like, whoa. You probably made that guy's day, honestly. Because he's probably so used to just being berated by everybody who's mad about it. I've been there before myself, like getting mad at a collections and like, or whatever. And just, not recognizing that the person on the other end has nothing to do
Nothing.
with it. They don't have anything to do with it.
They just got a piece of paper with your name on it,
Yeah,
or a
and they're like,
computer screen.
I have to call this person. Like,
Can you imagine? Do you think he goes, okay, here we go. Click.
Yeah.
hopefully they don't answer.
Yeah.
Hopefully they just get online and pay this.
Yeah.
Was that old Saturday Night Live skit where Michael Jordan, there was a guy that, a motivator, and he had Michael Jordan looking into a mirror, and he's like,
Stuart Smalley.
yeah, Stuart Smalley.
Stuart Smalley.
I'm great.
He's the best.
I'm amazing, and people, and gosh darn it, people love me or like me, whatever. So it's that self affirmation.
So
Yeah.
there's a really, really good book on that.
What's
I
that?
recommend. It's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself.
Oh,
That book.
yeah.
That is a
You're right there,
phenomenal book on that.
Because people will
I
definitely.
can loan it to you.
Thank you,
guys.
yeah.
One of my buddies has it right now, but he's due to give it back soon. So
And I
Okay.
don't know if you guys do this or not, but I am horrible to myself. I'm horrible to my. Like I say
I was for a long time.
I was like, if I say those things to somebody else, I'd get punched in the face, right? Like the things I think about myself, like the way I look at myself sometimes, and like the lowest moments, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that, and I ate that because I'm fat. I'm fat because I'm weak. I'm not, like this is not the guy that could go to war anymore. Like imagine if my family, if someone broke in here, I couldn't, like those things, they just keep getting worse.
your program,
and worse.
and to D's point on D, when D was on, shout out D, you program your self-conscious brain with those kinds of things. It's all in that book too. And What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. Like the more often you say, like you have to start recognizing that, catching it and changing it, because when you tell yourself, and we've been told our whole lives, like unconscious to ourselves, like you get told no thousands of times to like a 1,000-to-1 ratio as a child. And you're told no so often that, you get programmed into that. You get programmed into these like negative thought patterns and negative things like, no, I can't accomplish that. Like people tell you can't be a pro player. It's the people who don't, they program their subconscious like, no, I can do that.
Yeah.
I will do that. It's you tell it because your subconscious brain doesn't know the difference between an emotional thing, a fake thing that isn't real, or a thing that is real. All it knows is that you're saying to it, I will do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you continue to program your subconscious brain saying, I will do this, then your subconscious brain will start to shift over and start to kind of frame your life around the idea that you will do that.
Yeah.
And then you'll start to act that out. Like your conscious mind will start to act that out, because your subconscious tells the conscious mind what's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's actually something that I was dealing with right before this, which is why a culmination of things I've talked to you before, right? My daughter's about to have a quinceañera in the Latin culture, that's like a wedding, essentially, right? She's becoming a woman. So there's the stress of that, saving, bringing that to light, putting that together, work, family, health, all this stuff. And then coming out of like, COVID and all that. And then the wars, you're like, everything's so stressful. They're like the economy so bad. And I said, stop. Like I just join and do something. I saw your ad on Facebook, by the way, if Aries Mesa.
Aries East Mesa.
East
Aries
Mesa.
East Mesa.
Oh, that's right. Because is there an Aries Mesa also?
No.
No. Okay. So the East Mesa.
I just want to make sure everybody knows they gotta go
exactly.
east.
Yeah. But I was like, I just let me just do this. And I'll tend to do that sometimes, just throw myself at something without even thinking about it, because once I start thinking about it, is all those negative thoughts like, no, the money, the how hard it's going to be, the schedule around your work. And even though I've got a good opportunity right now to make things happen, with my job, I still will make up stuff in my own head of why I shouldn't do it. And I said, just don't think about it, just do it. And I did. And, I'm not going back. I'm convincing myself not to go back. But now those demons, they used to tell me, don't go in, because your workouts, you can't even, you're going to look silly, right? Because you're going to look fat, and you're going to look ugly, and you're going to be sweating, and you're going to be like, your shit's going to be all, I'm telling you, I go all the way of how I look to how I feel. And now, so I've conquered those, and I do that often. I go back and forth, just like basic training, right?
Sure.
You have to conquer that to get through that.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is your demons are shifting, at least mine, right? And I feel that this happens in people. So now my demons are like, okay, so this fat ass knows that he can make it through the workout. So that's not that shaming him is not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
So now the thing I have to get over this, and I know I'm kind of giving you ammo when you see me, to hustle more, because at first I went in and I said, I'm going to take it light. That's how I'm going to make it. I'm going to take it light, and I'm going to use all my military skills to, cut these corners here and there and do that, because that's the only way that I'm going to make it through here without making an absolute fool of myself. Once I got through that and I started actually doing good, and I was like, actually, I can actually do those skips all the way around without stopping. I can do crab crawls or whatever, crab walks without slowing down. Now I'm a little bit more flexible. And they're like, okay. So then the demons start going, yeah. Okay, that's good. So we're obviously not going to go backwards. This guy's obviously made up his mind. So now they're like injuries. If you do that, you're going to get injured. So slow down. So now my thing is my hustle. Now it's trying to slow me down from now. It knows that I got through those 6 weeks. Now it's telling me other stuff. And you got to be conscious of it, because you get so used to it calling you these things that once that stops, you're like, okay, they're gone. But no, they're not gone. My demons just have developed another form now. They're always there to slow me down from achieving like my top goals. And now they're telling me, well, you're good, but you're still not that good.
Yeah.
So watch out. And so I have to be careful of that. So when you see me slow down, sometimes that's them going, yeah, just don't try as hard.
Yeah.
You got it already. You already made, like they're convincing me that I've already made it, and I don't need to try harder. Those are my demons now.
You gotta put it back. You gotta be like, I go fat. I go hard. I put my all into this.
Yeah.
I do this.
Yeah.
This is what I do, because that's the subconscious programming again. It's like as much as the military is like good about breaking you down and building you back up kind of thing, like it is a lot of negative programming that goes in. Yeah. That isn't necessarily good.
Yeah.
Not for a normal life. It's good for almost like in a warrior life.
To be like very follow that protocol kind of thing. But to be your best version of yourself is like, you need to tell yourself positives. It's affirmations at the end of the day. It's being positive, affirming yourself, showing yourself that you can do it. You do it. It's not that you can. It's I do this.
Yeah. There's two things that come to mind whenever those thoughts hit me, and this is something like a tool that a sports psychologist gave us once. When I used to do triathlon, I did a lot of bike racing, stuff like that years ago, and the bike club, so to speak, that I was with, they brought the sports psychologist in before this race that we did, and he said, give your demons a name, but don't give them a voice. And what he meant by that was, you can't tell your own brain to go F itself. But if you give it a name, if you give those thoughts, that voice a name, you call it like a literal name, like Carlos. Yeah. Because I'm shitting on Carlos right now. Mm-hmm. But Carlos, you can tell Carlos go F himself.
Was he the guy from the phone call?
No. Carlos is my 6 p.m. instructor. Oh. But no, you can tell Carlos to go F himself, right? And you're fighting back just mentally, right? But you don't want to give him a voice, which means like, you don't want to say the things that voice is telling you out loud, because then it has real power. I mean, we're talking like 7x power. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it has such a profound effect that people, like you were saying, Steve, your brain doesn't know the difference. When you tell yourself, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, you believe it. Yeah. And your brain believes it, which means the next cheeseburger is like, yeah, this is just what we do. And instead of, hey,
harder
man,
to fight it.
Yeah. Instead of, hey, this isn't who I am. Like, that cheeseburger isn't who I am. Like, in front, when the first time you order like a salad, in front of your family, like you're on vacation, and they're like, fuck. I'm like, yeah, this is how I eat.
This is the new lifestyle.
This is how I eat.
That's tough.
No, like, it's not a new lifestyle. This is how I eat.
Well, see, and this is, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That for me has always been tough, because then what happens is, I'm telling you, I got some crazy demons in there, but they'll just start telling me, you're like, oh, so now you're better than everybody?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so now you think
fucking right I am.
So you're not taking, so you're going to eat healthy.
Yeah.
But your family's not eating. Oh, so, and it just starts telling, and then I'm like, you start looking in the mirror, I'm like, oh, I'm looking good. And I was like, you're not, dude. Look at you. Come on. And then all of a sudden it just goes from you felt really good to you're like, man, I'm not there yet. But the struggle for me is that I don't listen to those anymore. But when I say I don't do what they say, but I still hear them.
Sure,
so
we all do.
That's the tough part, right? You still hear them. Yeah. And getting through it, like, you're like, yeah, it's not that I got rid of my demons and that's how I was able to get through this. I actually still carry them, and that's what made my journey even harder, but even sweeter at the end because they're still there, and I hope that they're there at the end so I can just laugh at them.
Yeah,
but that's I think that's the struggle. I don't think we talk about that enough.
Right.
Yeah. As even just men, because I think women have a struggle too, but we're men, we're not women. We don't understand. Although some people would argue that. I don't want to get into that. Yeah. But as men, if you understand what you are and who you are, like that's the only way you're going to be able to fight those demons.
Yeah.
And I really do think like a lot of stuff that you do, kind of like the what do you call it? The not CrossFit, but
unconventional.
Unconventional. That's very much going back to like not caveman stuff, but like Viking
primitive
stuff. It's very primitive.
Yeah.
And there's something that feels
mostly just picking things up. Yeah,
I love that. I freaking love that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think it's the best jiu-jitsu translation. Just showing.
Because you got grip workouts, right? You're working out arms and legs. Yeah, it's like there's something to all of that. And if you don't understand it, first of all, then you're not going to be able to get the help you need or help yourself, right? And I think it's important to understand those things.
Yeah, I think for it's just the experience that I've had around the women in jiu-jitsu is like I've never heard my wife talk to her friends the way she talks to her jiu-jitsu friends. And just the empowerment, because when you suffer with somebody, right, and you bleed with somebody, they become something different in your life. You're not blood relatives, but you're relatives.
Yeah.
You know, like if you do like a 6-week camp with somebody to train for a jiu-jitsu tournament, and that person is there to coach you at that tournament, and win or lose, that's your brother or that's your sister. You know what I mean? And when I hear Amy talk to her jiu-jitsu friends, the way they talk to each other, it's all empowering, you know, and the demons come out and they talk to each other. They talk themselves through it. And I think a lot of men are starting to do that also in jiu-jitsu, but it's not as intimate as it is with the women, because when you talk about, 0.1% or whatever the hell the number is of black belts that there are in jiu-jitsu, there's even fewer women.
Oh, right.
Way fewer women. And if you have a woman black belt, that's an anomaly, even, right? Yeah. And so I think they share that. How should I put this? They share that way deeper than men could ever do it, because you're going to see 1,000 men come and go. You might see one or two women, right? But I think the farther you get into jiu-jitsu, where the numbers get smaller, because how many people that you started training with are still a purple belt or purple belts now? Handful, maybe.
That's tough. Yeah, I mean, there's a good amount of them that have stuck with it. Yeah. I mean, I guess the people that I've stuck with the most have been the ones who have. But I've seen a lot of come and go.
A lot
of people.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say you don't remember. You don't remember the ones
you stop. You stop. Like you kind of. Some people are gonna stop. Some people you're like, whoa, dude, you quit?
Yeah, are you crazy? Yeah,
what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like you were so good.
Yeah.
But no, for sure, you definitely see a lot of people like fall out of the contention, I guess, or like it's that grind, it's especially with jiu-jitsu, with a lot of things in life, is like people are so addicted to that Instagram result that like I can post this on Instagram.
Yeah.
But like people don't understand white belt. People will stick it out during white belt.
Sure.
But the reason why blue belt is such a statistic is because blue belt, you go through a lot of ups and downs, because early on in your blue belt time, you're getting beat by white belts.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm a blue belt.
Yeah.
This isn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And that'll happen again later on in your blue belt. And you're like, there's white belts still beating me. Like I'm supposed to be, I have a stripe now. I have a couple stripes now. Like what is going on? And that for people, that's that exponential curve. That's down here in this flat spot.
Yeah.
They're in that valley.
Yeah.
And most people quit there because they can't post that on Instagram. They can't go tell their friends and like go hype up the thing that they're like, oh, I'm this, badass blue belt. Like I, win all the, like, no, like most people aren't winning all these tournaments, most people aren't doing all these things, a lot of people quit. A lot of people quit because they don't want to keep pushing through that the time that it takes. There's a good analogy on it. I think it's in the book, The Slight Edge, and it's the water hyacinth. I think is what it's called. But it's basically like a small flower that starts off on a lake, and it's an exponential grower. So
how so? What do you mean exponential grower?
So it starts off as 1, and the next, let's just say day by day.
Yeah.
The next day it doubles to 2, and then the next day it doubles to 4.
Is it those that take over the lakes?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Within 10 days, you have a patch maybe yay big. It's not very big. You don't know. You don't see anything. 10 days.
Yeah.
You know, that's a long. I mean, for people, that's a long time, and we're extrapolating this out to a jiu-jitsu career, right?
Yeah.
10 days of that exponential growth, you don't see a lot.
Yeah.
But once you get to day 20, you're doubling hundreds of thousands. You know, day 30 is 10 million.
Wow.
Day 30 is 10 million, and that's how exponential growth works. That's that penny would you rather have a penny doubled every day or have $1 million?
Right. Yeah.
Most people take the $1 million. Well, a penny doubled every day for 30 days is $10 million.
Yeah.
So
I was just thinking of that in my head.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the same thing. Yeah.
And that's the water hyacinth, and that's most things worth doing in life.
Yeah.
Most things worth doing in life. You don't see those results in that first 10 days of your 30-day journey.
Yeah.
And this is, obviously extrapolate that out to 10 years, 5 years, whatever distance of whatever length of time you want for the achievement of your goal.
Mm-hmm.
But most people aren't willing to sit through that time where there's nothing.
Yeah.
Where there's nothing, where they're just getting hit, they're getting punched, they're taking the hits, they're not seeing the results, nothing to post on Instagram. Most people want microwave results, but they don't realize everything tastes better in the oven.
Yeah. I love that. That's a really good point. And, and I'm guilty of that to a point, you know what I mean? But one thing that I focused on when I was first starting jiu-jitsu, because I was really out of shape, and when I didn't focus on like aesthetics, I focused on performance. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by performance, it's not like I was going and kicking anybody's ass. Can I show up? Can I show up and perform? And perform to me, like in the beginning, was like, can I just stay on the mat the whole time?
Yeah.
Can I just stay on the mat? Not go sit down, not like, sit on the bench and drink my water and watch what everybody's doing. No, can I stay on the mat with the rest of the team? And then it became like, can I finish every round? Right? And then it became, can I catch the next person? I mean, this is, months and months and months of training. And, going into my first year, can I start now just implementing the stuff that I'm learning and maybe catch a submission here or there? Those little baby steps really helped me. By year 2, I was pretty confident, and I didn't focus on aesthetics, but then I look in the mirror and I'm like, holy crap, I'm a whole different person. I don't know if it took me a year or 2 years, but I was 60 pounds down in just a couple of years, but I didn't focus on it. You know what I mean? And imagine if I would have said, okay, I want to perform and I want to get in better shape, right, and I might have been overwhelmed and quit.
Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah. I might have been, I just wanted to stay on the mat with the other guys. That's all I wanted to do. And that worked.
It's going back to that simplifying.
Mm-hmm.
Simplifying. So like even my stuff, what I've been trying to do with like workouts, they're very simple. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, Monday through Wednesday, if I can make it. My son has swim class, so me and my wife will do a 20-minute workout upstairs and then 20 minutes in the sauna while he finishes up swim. And that by itself, it used to be that I'm like, I didn't really want to work out with her because I want to do man stuff. I want to lift weights. I want to hear the clang and and these are light, but man, that in itself made a difference at this here. And it's in conjunction with my family life. Mm-hmm. So that's where it gets harder. Is I had to realize, I'm like, those military days of like, when you're going to get with your buddies in my situation, and you're going to get together and do all this cool stuff and lift weights and pat each other in the back and all that. Those days are probably gone. You can still do them every once in a while, but it can't be a routine anymore. So you have to adapt to that new life. So I added that. The cold plunges, and then a few little light workouts on my own, and then at least 3 times a week, the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And that in itself has blended well with my lifestyle, and I'm in a good spot. You know? But it took a long time for me to figure that out.
Yeah.
I wanted and even with our jiu-jitsu classes, this is nice and it flows, and it's not easy, especially for me. when we're working out and getting through those things. But, you know, I feel good at the end. But even then, you know, I'm like looking forward to the days. I'm like, I want to go, and I know I'm not ready yet. You know, I don't want to get injured either. But again, those are the demons talking. But in reality, I don't want to just go do what do you call it, open. I do want to do open mats, but I want to get back into it. Where like when I was young in the military, we were like just going at it.
Yeah.
Right. Part of me just wants to do that, and I'm like, no, you gotta slow down.
Yeah.
You gotta slow down. But there is an urge there, you know, and I know that the closer I get to being able to do that, the urge, that fire, it just ignites, and I think I'll know when I'm ready for that, because I'm like that competition for masters, is it open to white belts too?
Yeah.
But you have to be approved, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, like I was like, maybe I should ask. I really want to get into. I want to test myself as a white belt, see where I'm at. But it's like a few days before my daughter's big event, and I was like, oh,
no, it's not the right time.
Yeah, it's not the right time, and that's where I got to go look at my demons. I'm like, I'm not doing it, not because of you. It's not you. You're actually right on this. You got to pay attention to your body as well.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm like, I want to get in. I want to get in better shape so that I can get in there and start, you know, actually working, you know, and feeling like the effects of this. So I want to do the open grappling and all that stuff, but I'm like, just slow down. So I know it's working. You know, I know it's working.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. And there's something to be said about that. Like 3 days a week, one class, 3 days a week. That's healthy. Yeah. You know, that's healthy. I was not healthy. I was, every day, at least twice a day. And then, you know, every time I told myself I'm going to take a day off, there was an open mat, and I was like, screw it, I'm just going to go. But, you know, we trained a lot. It was just different. For me, you know. Yeah. But my recommendation for most people is 3 days a week. 3 days a week's good. 2 is not as good, but it's doable. If you're doing 1 day a week, probably not the best. You know, think of it as learning a language, right? When you immerse yourself in a culture, you'll learn the language because or else you don't eat, right? But if you dabble, you'll still learn some stuff. You know, you'll learn how to get to the library or whatever they teach, you know, in Spanish class. But other than that, you know, you're going to be behind. You're going to be behind those that immerse themselves, and you gotta be willing to accept that. And for me, that was unacceptable. So that's just kind of how I did it. And I got injured. Want to talk about demons when my business partners and I split, and I was handling the entire business. I immediately went into conservative mode with my body. I'm like, well, I can't get hurt.
Right.
Or I'm screwed, because I was teaching a lot of classes a day, a lot. And
is this at your location?
Yeah, right now. Yeah. This is just like maybe 4 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't get hurt, you know? So then I was like, well, I can't train. That means I can't compete. That means I can't. And then finally I just told myself, I just refuse to live in fear, man. Yeah. You know, we're in a combat sport. You're exposed to injury every day. It's just the way it is, you know? But you can do stuff to mitigate that stuff. I can show up and get my lifting in, right? Strengthen my body, right? Get my stretching in, strengthen my, you know, expand my, or stretch my muscles. I can sauna, I can hot tub, I can do all of the things that take care of my body so that the risk is is less. But there's some people that don't, and they just train, and they never recover. And that's a freight train ready to hit a truck, man. It's not going to be good. You can probably speak to that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, you see a huge difference in people when they start like just working out. Mm-hmm. Just like people will be training, you know, 6-7 days a week. And I'm like, but you really should do some kind of weight training too.
Yeah.
Because one, I mean, they talk about it. It might've been the Peter Attia episode with Huberman, but he talks about bone mineral density being one of the most important things for the human body, and for like one of the biggest predictors of just all cause mortality later on in life. And he says one of the key ways to improve your bone mineral density is to lift heavy weights. And there's no getting around it. Yeah. There's not another way.
That's the way.
Lifting,
It's lifting weights.
Yeah.
It's strength training. They have like they had studies of elderly women starting to lift weights and improving their bone mineral density.
Wow.
And that in itself, because there was a crazy statistic, and I don't want to misquote it, but he's like, it was something along the lines of once an elderly person breaks like their hip or like a major thing, they die within 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like insane.
I was about to say that. And when like your grandparents, if that happens, you're like, oh man, because everybody knows that like death follows a big, and a lot of times it's the hip.
And it comes from that lagging of bone mineral density, because like that, if you don't have density in your bones, I mean, that
they're fragile.
They're fragile. They're more likely to break. And we're in a combat sport, you know, so we're in a combat sport that is all about joint locks.
Yeah.
Hip thrusting and all kinds.
It's all about joint locks and joint manipulation.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't understand when people don't lift. Like, I'm like, you know, I've had insane results with it. I've, you know, trained people who have had very good results with it. I see the benefits, and I'm like, you guys just take a couple days and just lift. You know, maybe dial back your training a little bit, but lift a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
Get under some things. You don't have to do what I do, but do something to help yourself, help your bones, help your own recovery, because like without some sort of outside of jiu-jitsu training, I don't think that the longevity will last as long. Like you can just train jiu-jitsu, but it's going to affect the way you train jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to train better, stronger, faster, more often if you train in other things outside. Like I run outside of jiu-jitsu. I do, you know, unconventional weight training, which is like Mesa's, kettlebells, clubs, sandbags. And then, you know, every once in a while I'll lift a weight, you know, in a big gym. But those things for me have been such a big benefit to my jiu-jitsu themselves, because they've helped me with my overall strength. And like, I have people who can attest to it. Like Ken Cosby, he's been coming to my kettlebell classes since I started them. And he tells me all the time, people tell him like, Ken, dude, you're so strong.
Yeah.
Like when you roll, his strength levels off I mean, he's strong. He's gotten much bigger. Yeah. Jarrell, Lexi.
Oh yeah.
Both of them, great benefit from training more, just lifting more often. And it's awesome.
Yeah. I do about 3 days a week in lifting, about even number lifting, rolling, maybe about 4 days a week in rolling. There's 2 a days that happen, you know, lifting, rolling the same day. But I try to take Saturday completely off. Like I try to do nothing on Saturday, and that's really difficult. That's so difficult because there's always something going on. Like there's an open mat or there's a, you know, promotion or stuff like that. But, you know, for the most part, Saturday's my day. And then Sunday we do comp training and I lift. Monday's my lighter day because I don't lift, but if I choose to roll, it'll be like 2 rounds, 3 rounds, something like that. But I'm also 51 years old. You know what I mean? So I got to think a little bit. I got to think about 60, right? I got to think about 70. I can't go as hard as I used to, you know, and it's so funny. People shit on me in the comments and be like, I roll every day and I'm 41. I'm like, bitch, I wish I was 41. I rolled 3 times a day at 41. I did 12 competitions when I was 41. So,
let me ask you this. How do you, as a black belt, how do you train? Do you train with other black belts? Cause while I've been doing jiu-jitsu or the basics for a long time on and off, I'm still a white belt because this is the first time official class. I did one that, 6 years ago, but officially this is probably the longest I've lasted on an actual gym.
Okay.
Like a school.
Yeah.
And how do you roll with other black? Is there like a secret society where you guys meet up?
There is. And we light candles and.
Because who do you learn from?
We sacrifice chickens. No, I learned from everybody, dude. I learned from everybody. Steve's taught me a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I still do private lessons. I still do seminars.
Like you take private lessons?
Yeah, I take private lessons and I pay full price. There's nobody giving me a break on private lessons. Yeah. But if I see a black belt that does something really well, I'm like, I want to learn that.
Yeah.
Because I understand the move, but maybe I don't understand the system or the principle of the move, right? Because if you understand a system, concept, principle of a move, then you've just learned 100 moves.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because everything applies to the same type of stuff, right? But But I like rolling with everybody because I learn from everybody. So when I roll with a white belt, I learn what's going to happen in a street fight.
Yeah.
Guy doesn't know what he's doing.
They're a little bit wilder.
Yeah, they're a little bit wilder, right? They're not punching me, right? But they're moving as if, right? They're moving as if they want to win. They want to win so bad. They want to pass my guard so bad. So I do rolling with a white belt gets you back to basics. Because I can't set up a lasso, spider guard, all this other crap, because they're just yanking the grips and they're breaking my fingers. You know what I mean? If I try to. But if I do that to Steve not only wants to pass my guard, but he wants to do it in such a way that there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
So that means he's going to control my entire body. So then now we're playing a chess match. When it comes to Steve, if I'm playing a lasso, he knows how to defeat the lasso, but I know what he needs to do to defeat the lasso. So now it's like counter and counters, right? But he wants to control my body from a scramble so that when he does defeat a leg or a grip, now he can control that portion of my body, and it's null. It means nothing anymore. So now he only has to worry about the other side. So he and I are playing a chess match on the way to his guard pass, which he gets pretty often. But when I roll with a white belt, I'm going to pull him into my guard. I'm either going to scissor sweep or pendulum sweep him. I'm going to hold him in mount, and I'm going to go for a very, very basic submission where we're both going to be safe. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure.
That's how you kind of bridge between the two. When I roll with a black belt, with a black belt that's like way better than I am, which is really often, I'm playing my A game. We're playing A game. Right. When I roll with a white belt, I'm certainly not going to play tournament style with a white belt, but I can practice.
Yeah, right. And because the thing is, like, when you look at even blue purple belts higher, it's so slow and methodical, and the things happen, but they're so tight, and it's so like precise that it looks like it doesn't, not that they don't know what they're doing, it just doesn't look, it looks weird to someone who's not trained.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you see, like you said, a white belt, they're going crazy. You're like, yeah, that's what a fight would probably look like, right? But the reality is that they're
tired in 2 minutes.
Yeah. And the things you guys are doing, like there's so much stuff going on that you were not watching, right? The hand positioning, the moving, and so I try to keep those things in mind. Is like when you're practicing, like, hold higher in the collar. Oh, you're right. Okay, so always try to go, no matter what you do, try to do those little things, right? Because you practice the same thing over and over wrong, and then you're trying it in when you're free rolling, you're doing it. You're like, why isn't it working? You're like, because you're literally just 2 inches lower than when you should be. Up here, this happens instantly, and you guys almost seem like you go right for that spot. So when things happen fast, it's because like you said, you already were
those
2 steps
hours,
ahead.
Practice doesn't make perfection. Perfect practice makes perfection.
Yeah.
So you have to. It's dialing in like you said, dialing in those things. Like even that little tweak of like, okay, I need you to grab 2 inches higher.
Yeah.
I need you to roll that collar up into your hand rather than
not just grab it. Yeah.
And there's times where you don't even need that. Like if you make a big mistake, which white belts make all the time, right? And there's blue belt mistakes, and then purple belt mistakes are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But a white belt mistake is like you're in my guard and you come way off your base. I barely need to isolate anything or get a grip to sweep you. You're already swept. You just don't know it, right? So that's why that happens kind of quick. But if we're working together, the chances of me sweeping him with a scissor sweep from closed guard, right? Yeah. But if he thinks I'm going to, and I do something different, now that's where the chess match is, right? So now that's 2 steps ahead. But he's thinking, all right, he's going to try this bullshit sweep, then he's going to try that, then I'm going to go to this. Now he's 3, right? So that means I got to be 4. Yeah. And that's where the chess match comes in, right? So that's the beauty of it. You can practice, you can learn from everybody. But the reality is there's some people at such a level with such an understanding. Like I loved the conversation I had with Samir Chantre. He talked 20 minutes about transitioning from knee on belly to mount. What you need to control, what you need to isolate, what needs to happen in order for that to work 10 times out of 10. Not 5 out of 10. Right. To happen 10 times out of 10. Yeah. And it may not happen 10 times out of 10, but you can dissect what went wrong because you understand that principle. And I'm sitting there with that conversation like, we just spent 20 minutes talking about knee on belly to mount. And it's fucking awesome, right? This is like multiple time world champion talking about something so fundamental, but that he cares about so deeply that he took the time to explain it to another black belt. Yeah. So that's
just sitting here listening to this. It makes me wonder if a reality show where you take a bunch of white belts and then you take like a bunch of black belts and you throw them out there and just make the black belts go
Go
hard,
ham.
just go hard on those like take like 20 white belts and only like 5 black belts or something,
Yeah.
and see how long it's like. That would be a fun show.
Yeah.
That would be a fun show to watch.
Well, there's a guy, I don't know if you're familiar with Tim Kennedy. He's pretty famous in the jiu-jitsu world and shooting world, and Army guy. But I think it was him. He did something where
did he disguise himself?
No, that's different. Yeah, he did. Everybody knew who
or
he
someone
was.
else.
He's like, it's hard to disguise a gorilla.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Especially Tim Kennedy.
Yeah, but he did something with like police where he's like, there's like 5 or 7 cops, and he's like, I bet you can't handcuff me. Yeah. And they didn't. Yeah. They couldn't. Number one, he's a world-class athlete.
Right.
That changes a lot of things.
Yes.
And
he's a UFC fighter.
Yeah.
UFC fighter.
But the one thing that I tell people that we can all have in common is everybody can get in the best shape of their lives.
Of their lives.
Their lives.
That's
it's an individual thing.
That's the key.
Right.
A lot of people think it's like, it's a comparison game.
Right. I'm never going to be Tim Kennedy.
Stop being a comparison game.
Right.
Get in your best shape. Don't worry about the guy next door.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the guy go back to that Instagram thing.
Yes.
Like, stop worrying about everybody you follow on Instagram. Stop worrying about your buddy who started at the same time as you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just be the best. Go in that
for
day.
You.
Get as much out of the class as you can get that day. Learn as much as you can. Improve. Get better. Work your body out. Become the best version of yourself for your family, for your life. So that way, when something does happen, you're able to control a situation.
Yeah.
You're able to make something happen.
And forget about fighting. Like you were talking about your mission statement, your philosophy. One of the things I have 5 things that I live by, but one of them is get in the best shape possible so I can execute life at the highest level possible. And just that, execute life at the highest level. I was a sales guy for a long time, but I had to get on roofs. And I was working with like building managers who couldn't climb a ladder with me.
Yeah.
This is your shit, bro. Like, I'm here temporarily, This is your thing. Yeah. Right. And he's like, oh, I'll wait here. What do you mean you'll wait here? I don't know what I'm looking at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he can't
talk up here.
Yes. But he can't execute life the way I can execute life because he's not taking the time to get himself in decent shape. And I'm not talking about I will tell you this, not everyone is dealt the same hand, right? We're all come from different backgrounds, different, limitations, but there's still something you can do. There's 100%. Still something you can do to get yourself in the best shape of your life for your situation as it stands right now. And a lot of people neglect that. I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about people talking to them about, if the world went to shit, I just take all my guns and sit up on my roof. And he was like, how the hell are you going to get up there?
Yeah, right.
You can't get up on with guns. Have you ever carried one? Like, you know what I mean? It's awkward. It's heavy, and ammo. Forget about it. But that's the reality of it. We think about things in terms of like, if I had to defend myself, I could. No, you can't.
Right.
I've been doing this stuff for going on 11 years, and I don't know if I can. It's going to be anything can happen in a fight.
And then just the physical part of it, but being in shape helps your mental game too. Mm-hmm. So it makes you understand things better, see things better, right? React better. So it all comes, it's all one thing.
Yeah.
It's all one thing, right?
Yeah.
And when we talk about having a bad day, and then, if you had a bad day and then you came in to instruct and we felt it and we go and we take it, which is why I do really believe we have this weird connection, right? With ourselves, with the earth, with everything. We do take those things, even if you didn't say anything.
I don't have bad days.
Well, you haven't had one. You haven't had one. Not with us. I'm saying not with us, obviously. But you could feel it. You can feel it, right? If one of us here was a little bit off, if I was just kind of sitting back here quiet, far away from the mic and just cross my arms, that simple act, you guys would be like, what's going on with this guy, right? Just that alone. So I do believe like that you can, and you can pass that on to your family and to your kids and all that. So it is a state of mind, and also they're watching.
Yeah.
People are watching.
Everybody's watching.
Kids are watching.
Yeah.
They're all watching.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, when I, do some of my posts on social media, it's not just for, that self-gratification, although it doesn't hurt because it helps me accountable.
Yeah.
Which is why I started posting a lot of my videos,
right.
my ice bath videos, because it held me accountable. And then when I don't do something or I miss a day, whatever, I'm like, man, I'm a joke because I've been saying all this and then I'm not doing it. So as long as I'm doing it, there'll come a day where I might move on to something else and, not necessarily record it and just do it for myself. And, I'm kind of there already. But the point is just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it. And you do have an effect on other people on what you do. People ask all the time, like, what? That's dumb. That's just, what are you trying to prove? I'm like, I'm not trying to prove anything. Get in one. Trust me.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and it's not for everybody, but do something.
Yeah.
Do something. Right.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with my videos, man. Like I started off, dude, it's been a year and a half or more now that I've been posting, and it's, it's not for me at this point. It is an accountability thing. It's really great. But I get a lot of positive feedback from people like, hey man, you motivated me to like start this up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I've helped people like get into kettlebells, or like, I get people who hit me up like, hey, how should I get into mace swinging? How should I get into sandbags? Like,
yeah.
And that alone makes it worth it. Cause somebody is now, I did affect somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
It comes down to that affecting people.
Absolutely.
Cause like just posting that video, like social media has a lot of negatives, but like, if you don't let it consume you, and you can use it in a positive way. Like, I mean, I'm sure you post these on there. And so it's like,
I catch a lot of hate.
If people don't,
but there's a lot of good too.
There's a lot of hate too.
Yeah.
I catch a lot of hate, a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
But
I like
fine.
the all caps guys that are yelling at you. Those are my favorite ones.
And they're probably, and those guys are probably not in shape.
I just like them and put the 2 hands up emoji.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah. That's it, buddy.
That's what they get.
Yeah. But you're coming at it from like, you obviously have the body and that lifestyle. You're showing already what can be done, right? And then you're teaching people how to do this, what to do. And I feel like in mine, I'm at the early stages where the way I see it is I'm teaching other normal dads, 40-year-old dads, or even like veterans that got out and kind of lost their way or lost that camaraderie, how to get back in it, right? So mine's like the early journey when I'm showing that. And I know it comes off sometimes, but again, that's the demons talking, saying, who are you trying to show off to? You're not in good shape. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not trying to teach anybody what the effects are of this, because I'm still learning the effects of it. What I'm trying to teach people is I'm trying to teach them, just get in it. Yeah. Right. Just start it. I'm not saying I've done this forever and look what it's done for me, because I'd be a horrible poster child for the outcome. Right. I'm the beginning.
No, I think that's great.
I'm the first picture.
But it's part of, there has to be a beginning.
Before,
There has to be a beginning. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always show the photo of me in my first tournament. I look like the Sasquatch that ate me. That's what I look like. Just heavy. I had actually got down to 208 for that tournament. I'd already lost a bunch of weight. I was like, that first tournament, I was probably just over 6 months in, not even a year yet. And I don't know why I did it. It's a bad idea. I got smoked. It's unwatchable. It's unwatchable, that tournament. But anyway, I'll share it with you guys one day if I can find the video. I think Amy has it on her iPad somewhere.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's all part of the journey.
It's all part of it, dude. Yeah. I love it. I miss my white belt. I still have it over there. I miss my white belt because, that signified a very difficult decision that I had to make. Like, walking in and putting on that belt is very difficult. It's probably the most difficult thing I've done in a long time. At that point.
Be bad.
You're going to be bad at something for a long time.
Yeah.
And how old were you? Were you in your late 30s or 40s?
I was 40 years old. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was 40 years old.
That's why I love John's quote on the thing it's on his stuff. The lifelong pursuit of unattainable perfection is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is jiu-jitsu, but that is really life itself. Like, we're all in a pursuit of unattainable perfection.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. Doesn't matter what you see on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. Nobody has a perfect life. Nobody's doing all the right things. Nobody's, everybody's doing their best.
Yeah.
Or everybody should be doing their best.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. And that's what jiu-jitsu is, such a good relation to life, because it's about just sticking it out.
Yeah.
Showing up.
That's really it,
doing
right?
what you can do, doing what you got to do.
Just show up.
That's really it.
Yeah, you're not going to come in every day. There was plenty of days I went to jiu-jitsu in my journey so far that I did not want to go.
Yeah.
That I was like, I could just chill. And I'm like, I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
Just going to go.
Yeah.
And, you just keep going. You just keep going. And I'm sure, I mean, even more so when you're a black belt. It's like, I'm a black belt now. Like,
Yeah. I tell this story all the time about what it's like when you get your black belt. I felt the feeling 3 different times. Mm-hmm. The first time was when I walked into the academy and I just kind of checked it out. I'm like, oh gosh, what the, right? The second time was when I tied my white belt and stood in line. I'm like, okay, no one's stopping me. I'm going to just hang out here in the back, because we had 2 lines back then. It was a big class. Yeah. And then the third time was when I got that black belt and I stood in the black belt line. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stand over here with you guys because no one's going to stop me, right?
Nobody's kicking me out.
You're not going to take this back, right? But it was an odd feeling. It was an odd feeling, and and I'm from that point, like, I'm always chasing that feeling. I want that feeling again. I want to know what it's like to, I think the next one will be when I'm, eligible and I promote my first black belt, officially, right? Because we promoted a few, but I had to do it through Paul. Mm-hmm. Paul Nava, my instructor.
Right. Yeah.
So in Jiu Jitsu, you have to be a black belt for at least 6 years before you can promote black belts.
Oh, got it.
So that for me is September 25. So
okay.
Yeah, so that'll be my 6th year, and then after that, I'll be promoted. I can promote a black belt, and I think that'll be a significant point. I mean, a significant day, same as day 1 standing at the back of the line as a white belt, right? So it's pretty cool.
But all you got to do is just keep doing it.
Yeah, not die, show up, yeah. and then I get to do it.
Yeah, so
that would be a dream come true. And I'm always looking at the line, like, who's going to be my first one? Like, who's going to be my legit first one? You know what I mean? That's kind of cool. And you never know. I mean, you never know who stays. You never know who goes. So It's hard to tell.
And then when somebody comes in with, like, for example, you had been doing this for a while before that. How do you find out? Do you test them, like, in order for them, or do they just come in with if someone comes in with a blue belt, you trust that they're a blue belt?
I do. Yeah. So, there's some folks that'll be like, and I'm not gonna name names, but I've heard people go into a school and they have, like, 4 stripes on their blue belt, and the instructor tells them, hey, take the stripes off your
start over
fresh
here.
Blue belt. And most people don't have an issue with that. The only thing I have, and I've had people go to a school and they were brown belt and then they got demoted to purple, and then they start as a purple at that school. I'm not one to do that. I if your instructor tells you that you're a blue belt, then you're a blue belt. I don't care where you go. Like, you come to my school, you go wherever. You may not be at the level of my blue belts, but that's not the point of it, right? Like, a lot of things have to go right in order for you to get a blue belt. So I know you can at least endure and overcome.
Right.
I'm good with that. Now, when a local person comes in and they're a colored belt, I probably know who they are.
Yeah.
Steve and I have known each other a long time, so it's like a no-brainer. Yeah. Like, he is not a purple belt, I can tell you that, right? Yeah. But in a good way, he's not a purple belt, right? And then, the only thing that I've seen that's a little bit, is I've seen guys leave at white belt and they got like a couple stripes, and then they leave for a few years and they come back and they have 4 fresh stripes on their belt. And I'm like, wait a minute, where did you train? Like, where did you go? And they're like, oh, yeah, I got hurt and I'm back now. I'm like, I don't know that you had 4 stripes, bro. Yeah. Like, I don't forget that shit. So, but yeah, that's the only thing. Like, I'm not one to tell another instructor, like, hey, you're wrong about this guy. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
No, people kind of like train up into it too. I've seen that before, like, where guys come to a school and they're like not quite at the level of, like, what let's say they're blue belts, for instance, like, they're not quite at that blue belt level, and they may just, like, take longer to get to purple belt because they're kind of training up to that level. Yeah. They're going to be probably the worst blue belt for a while. But, and maybe even as blue belts get promoted, they're still the worst blue belt for a while, but eventually they train into that level.
Yeah. And as a practitioner, you really have to manage that expectation. Like, for me, it's like, it's literally time and grade at black belt. It's time and grade. As long as you're active, and you meet the time limit, whatever it is, and you don't die, they give you a stripe. Right. But you've got to really manage your expectation at the lower belts, because, and I'm including brown belt into this, because at a certain level, you need to be doing certain things a certain way. Yeah. So I don't see a brown belt as like, unless they're like at the 30 and below level, adult level, it's totally different. They're a totally different animal, right? They've got to be selfish. They've got to be about them because they're competing at the highest level, right?
Oh, right.
That's different. But if you're a masters person, even if you're competitive, like my expectation is like you're a mentor, number one.
Right.
You're mentoring other people. Like if you come in 2 seconds before class starts, you train, and 2 seconds after you're gone out the door, you're not mentoring anybody, right? That I know of.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you are. But you're a mentor, number one. You can articulate what the system and concept that you're learning and teaching. You can teach it to other people. Those are really two big ones for me. Yeah, that's really, you know, when people like ask me like, what's the path? You know, that's be a mentor and know your stuff. Like literally know your stuff. Study.
Yeah.
You know, understand it. Some people are just good with like learning a move and being good at like 1 or 2 moves. I'm not okay with that. I know that sounds crazy, and I hate to speak in absolutes about it, but I feel pretty strongly about it. I don't know. What's your opinion?
I kind of agree to an extent. I mean, like I understand. I think it comes back to where you're saying like people who are like highly competitive, people who are, they may have like a couple moves and not really be able to teach them because they're just like, I'm a competitor.
Yep.
And that, I think that's fine.
Totally different.
Yeah. And, you know, then there's also like, you know, people who are just on, they don't care about anything. They just want to be doing jiu-jitsu. And I think that's fine too. But again, if like people are trying to progress to that point, I do agree. Like you should be trying to master your craft, and like the highest level of mastery is to be able to teach
it.
Yeah.
And so that being like should be the ultimate goal and should be something that like people are working on, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like in charge of a class teaching, but like
no.
if somebody needs help with a shrimp, they shouldn't be just shrimping past them.
Right.
Yeah. Especially with a brown belt on, like you should be like, hey, like come here, man. Let's do
Let's
a
show you how to.
Let me show you how to shrimp. Let me show you where to put your feet. Let me show you how to do a forward roll.
Yeah.
Like they should be taking initiative to take people off to the side and help them out, especially like I said at a brown belt level, or like even like a purple belt. Like people should be starting to kind of take that initiative, especially if their goal is to eventually progress on to the black belt, because the black belt is a level where in my opinion, and this is like something you can expound on a little bit more, but in my opinion is you're a teacher at that point.
At that point, yeah.
You're still a student of the game forever, but you get that black belt and now you are there for your students. You're there for students. You're there to teach. Yeah. You're there to share jiu-jitsu. You've reached that level where now it's your duty to try and pass on what you can.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's, you nailed it. Really. I mean, you are a teacher at that point. Again, if you have a 22-year-old black belt who travels and competes, probably not going to spend a lot of time teaching. Right. But that's why it's a little bit different. But yeah, excuse me. But yeah, I really like what you said about you're almost sacrificing your own training to help others, you know, to a point, right? Yeah. You don't want to sacrifice a lot, but you are taking that initiative. Like if you see a white belt struggling, like, hey, come on over here. And number one, it helps your instructor immensely, because the flow, the class flow is really, really important. Right. And you've probably felt this where Steve may have to help somebody a little bit longer and it kind of stalls the flow of the class. And then you got to pick that flow back up. And that's really difficult. Right. But when you have somebody who's willing to mentor and help, you can keep the flow of the class going and that person gets the instruction. Right. Yeah. And, you know, once you have a good community, a good, a lot of people call it a vibe, but I call it a vision. Once you have a good vision that everybody buys into, it's almost a no-brainer. Like your expectation should be that your brown belts do those things, right? I mean, kind of no-brainer, right?
Well, and that comes from you, right? Because that's like everybody kind of looks up to you, and so if you let certain things go, or you set the standard, like that's the standard that's going to be,
I think it's also important to, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
I think it's also important to state that like at white and blue belt, you have to also be a little bit selfish.
Yeah.
Because you need to be learning. Mm-hmm. Like you shouldn't be taking a ton of time to spend your time like you can teach a little bit here and there, like maybe like you're a blue belt and you see somebody struggling shrimping and nobody else is helping them, you probably know how to shrimp.
Yeah,
you can probably help them out.
Yeah,
but when it comes to like a brand new move, like as a blue belt, as a white belt, you should just be learning the move.
Yeah,
just be learning the move.
Agreed.
Like,
yeah,
there's you know, it starts to become more important at purple belt and even more important at brown belt to really start to like help other people, but there needs to be a level of learning for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was always taught when I was a white belt and a blue belt, like, yeah, you can help your partner, but as soon as the instructor walks up, shut up.
Right. Yeah. That's one of those things. And I try not to ask too many, not questions. I think questions are important, but like when people, and this is probably from the military, when the drill sergeant telling you to shut up, right? Because you're like, well, what about this? What happens to, like, where they're not questioning your move, but their questions like, but what if somebody grabs you from here? And you got to think, you're like, I know you're a good guy and you don't take insult to it, but sometimes other people might be like, well, I'm teaching you this way for a reason.
Yeah.
You don't think, you're like, oh my God, you're right. Imagine like all of a sudden Steve's like, you're right. Yeah. I never thought about it that way. You're like,
I want you to do that though. Yeah. Like if you see something and you're like, oh, like what if they grab here? And I'm like, whoa. Like I'll tell you. Yeah. I'll be like, oh dude, I didn't even think about that. Like let's explore it a little bit. Like I don't mind. Because jiu-jitsu is such a young art too. That like there's stuff that you might see as a white belt or the brand new guy who has no outside vision of, you know, no outside perspective or no perspective that they know, that sees something and they're like, let me just ask them. I hope they ask the question, because if it is something new, then I'm like, wow.
I guess really cool. It depends on how they ask it. Right?
Yeah, if they're asking it condescendingly.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, and that's...
What if he bites you? I'll bite him back.
Yeah. Well, when you're there, so there's... And there's a lot of the contemplating, but sometimes it feels like it you're right, like it throws off the
flow.
The flow sometimes.
If it's not argumentative.
Right,
yeah.
right.
If it's just like, hey, I really think that... Like, I really would just want to know, like, if they grab here. Like, most of the time, I'm just going to be like, oh, like, that, there's a whole different moveset. Like,
yeah, there is something to that. So.
Because a lot of jiu-jitsu is like, okay, this is a reaction that we're going over.
Right.
And this is why it works. But if they do that, there'll be different stuff you do. Yeah. And we're not going over that right now, but just know
that there is
stuff
Agreed.
There.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, listen, boys, I got to get to work. We've been going for 2 hours. We'll have to do this again because I think we got just scratched the surface of everything we want to talk about. I'm sure. We'll have to do this. I don't know. We'll do it again, and definitely want to have you back on.
Of course.
You know, if you'd like to come on, but you guys, let us know where we can find you guys on social media.
For me, Instagram at STEEVEE_MAADEEN. Steve Madden, like from Wolf of Wall Street.
Got it. Okay, cool. Is that where that's from?
Yeah.
Well, Steve Madden is the shoe guy, right?
It's the shoe guy. But the reason why the double vowels is the Steve Madden.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, nice. Yeah. All right.
That's what that's from. Nobody gets it, but a lot of people think that's my real last name.
Because when you told me, you're just like, there's like 20 E's.
Yeah. I love it.
I'm just at same thing, Instagram, Facebook, at Fallen360. So Fallen 360 is my podcast, and that's same thing. So my Instagram, and you can look up podcasts, same Apple and wherever podcasts are available.
Yep.
They're all over on that. So Anchor, I think, is where I started. So
okay, I do the same thing on Anchor. Yeah.
Very easy to use. So go check it out too. We do a lot of funny stuff, and started doing stuff like this too. We're interviewing just people. With a good message, because I think people want to hear other people's stories, so
for sure.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
Absolutely is. So. I had a blast, guys. Thank you guys so much for doing this.
Yeah thank you.
All right, everybody. Hey, I want to thank our sponsor, Bioprotein Technologies. Hey, go on bioproteintechnologies.com and get $30 off your first order when you use the promo code Foxcast. I've been using that stuff for about 4 months now. It's amazing. You got to try it. I do the day supplement, and I also do the evening supplement called Cortisleep, and they also have a B12 supplement that I started taking. Feel amazing, guys. You'll love it. If you hate the podcast, give us a review. If you love the podcast, give us a review. Follow us on Instagram, the BJJ Foxcast, and check us out on YouTube. Thanks, boys. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.